the international webinar on the food, gut, and holistic health. We are covering this, including a normal diet as well as the children with special needs like autistic age or ADHD or other neurodevelopmental disability. Now, I would like to introduce the first speaker of this day, Dr. Jason C. Unni. About the sir, he is Editor-in-Chief, Indian Academy of Pediatrics Drug Formulary, and Senior Associated Consultant to Aster Medicity, Kochi, Kerala. And he's a National Convener, Indian Academy of Pediatrics, Poor Scholastic Performance Program for the year of 2007 and 2011 academic year, and is actively involved in IAP advocacy for children with learning disabilities, and past Secretary and President of Indian Academy of Pediatrics, Kerala State Branch, and past Secretary and President of NNF, Kerala State Branch, and past Secretary and Chairperson of Indian Academy of Pediatrics, CMIC, and also is a past Chairperson for Indian Academy of Pediatrics Neurodevelopmental Chapter, and is a very resource person and master trainer for various Indian Academy of Pediatrics action plans, and he authorized many books, preferably on life skills, and he contributed chapters to various pediatric textbooks, published 50 odd articles. I welcome Dr. Jason C. Unni sir to this international webinar on this. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Jason sir.
Yeah, Dr. Jagadish and the organizers of this wonderful CME on nutrition and neurodevelopment. I'm so thankful to you for having involved me in this program, because neurodevelopment is something that is very close to my heart. Now, we are going to talk today, I'm going to talk today basics, very basic things about nutrition and neurodevelopment in the first 1,000 days of life, a foundation for brain development and learning. Well, the first 1,000 days is, as you know, from conception to the second birthday of the child. That is your period that we are talking about. The critical window of opportunity to shape a child's development, we know about that. It's got tremendous potential. So there's a lot of things that you can do to improve the neurodevelopment of these children, of normal children also. And it's a time with this enormous vulnerability. So a lot of things can go wrong. So how well or how poorly a child fares during his first 1,000 days can mean the difference between a thriving future and one characterized by an enormous struggle. I just put up these slides to show you that neurodevelopment in the fetus starts very, very early, from the 3rd week. So 3rd week to 16 weeks is when the central nervous system is developing, most sensitive at that time. And that is the area that we are going to talk about today. Mainly. Other areas of development we are not talking about. The brain neurons develop and multiply in the first trimester. So from 3rd week onwards, you're going to have the nervous system developing. Neurons migrate. 2nd trimester, there's neuronal branching. And by the 3rd trimester, synapses are formed. There's some pruning. The synapses reorganize, and there is myelination. So it is very early in life that the neurodevelopment starts. As far as hearing is concerned, it's by the 23 weeks, the cochlea reaches adult size. So onset of hearing is between 23 to 27 weeks of gestation. And the organ of Corti is fully differentiated by 30 weeks. Similarly, with the eye, 22 days onwards, the eye is developing. And so what we are aiming at is saying that developmental structures and processes in the first 1,000 days of life influence behavior and provide a basis for later developing structures. The sensory systems, auditory and visual, hippocampus for declarative and learning memory, myelination for speed of processing, neurotransmitters for affect and reward, and prefrontal cortex for planning, attention, inhibition, and multitasking. And the functional MRIs in fetuses have shown that the process starts from the 25th day of conception, when the neural tube begins to form. By the end of the embryonic period, that is gestational week of 10, the basics of the neural system has already been established. So the emphasis is for a need for adults and girl and pre-pregnant nutrition. Because the fetal and brain and the spinal cord is one of the very first systems to develop. And in fact, it makes big strides before anyone even knows that one is pregnant. So, you know, a mother before he knows she's pregnant, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, doesn't know she's pregnant, but the neural system is already developing in the fetus. So the first few weeks of generation, the zygote is growing at an incredible rate, and proper nutrition support but supports a rapid cell division, development of supporting structures for the placenta implantation and the neural tube closure. So the importance is for nutrition in the pre-conception period. Before conception, awareness needs to be created among childbearing age group who are sexually active. Timing is very imperative because it's important for the woman of childbearing in age to have the proper nutrients on board in the event of unanticipated pregnancy. Research on preconception nutrition and development issues have focused mainly on folate and iodine, which we will talk about in detail. Folate is the first thing that we are going to talk about. Neural tube defects, prevalence is 1 to 10 per 1,000 live births, with a higher prevalence in non-viable pregnancies. The severity of effects range from anencephaly, which is fatty, to asymptomatic closed spinal lesions. And it was in 1964 that it was proposed that folate might be involved in part due to the higher prevalence in low-income, potentially undernourished population. The supplementation multivitamin containing folic acid starting 28 days before conception was proved to lower the incidence of neural tube defects relative to the unsupplemented control group. So that study came out by Hibbard by Smithers in Lancet in 1980. So the recurrence was significantly reduced by preconception supplements. That's another study which showed that. And based on this growing evidence, policymakers established a requirement for folic acid in women of the childbearing age group. So this should start actually from adolescents itself. You should know their folate levels and make sure their folate levels are not falling low. Another study by Shaw in 2004 showed that the risk of neural tube closure defects is furthest reduced by a high preconception intake of methionine, choline, and betaine in combination with the intake of folate alone. So therefore, it is not only folate that is involved, it reduces overall optimal nutrition is what is important before conception. So you need all these elements to make a good neural tube development. The next thing is iodine. Iodine is a major cause for childhood cognitive issues worldwide. It's essential for the production of thyroid hormones, we know that. And during pregnancy, iodine requirement increase because there is an increased need for thyroid hormones. You know, the fetal thyroid doesn't start working until the second trimester. And transfer of maternal iodine to the fetus occurs throughout gestation. And therefore, if severely deficient the first few weeks of gestation, you can land up with a child who's a cretin, hypothyroid. If it affects neurogenesis, neuronal migration, synaptogenesis, and myelination, and mild to moderate deficiencies can lead up with intellectual delays, disrupt academic functioning. Iodine studies, what are the studies we have on iodine? In Ecuador, you had a study which showed that the mean IQ of children born in iodine-treated village was higher than the control village which didn't get iodine. So interestingly, this treatment occurred before pregnancy or the first trimester. The difference in IQ was a full 11 points. So you need to have these children have their iodine status optimal before pregnancy or at least the first trimester. In New Guinea, they gave injections of saline iodine to different groups. An untreated group had cretin rate of 9% and the treated group at just 2%, which is significant. An analysis showed that 6 out of 7 cretins in the treated group were born to mothers who were treated later in pregnancy. So the early initiation of treatment is most important. So treatment must be done early in pregnancy, since most women do not know that they're pregnant in the first few weeks, and impaired with their iodine sufficiency is achieved before conception. Salt iodination programs, that is iodide salt in your national programs, is in place globally, but the cost of iodide salt has been so much that the results have not been pervasive. So that is the reason why we are not having enough studies on national level iodide supplementation. Other nutrients required in pregnancy, fetal neuronal development is dependent on nutritional environment in the utero. So the fetus developing in a suboptimal environment will compensate by adapting to metabolic systems, that is the fetal programming. So if there is less nutrition during the fetal environment, then that is what the baby is programmed for. And if the child has good nutrition afterwards, he'll land up in trouble and they will have problems with adult onset disease. Maternal obesity during gestation has been related to insulin resistance and thus metabolic disorder in adulthood. The classical example is the Dutch famine of 1944. Offspring of children, a woman who were pregnant during the famine were unable to provide sufficient nutrients to the fetus in utero. As adults, they developed severe disease, obesity, and other in diabetes. So this is in relation to the mothers who have been sufficiently nourished during pregnancy. The fetal programming is an example of fetal programming where the fetus is prepared epigenetically for a world with little nutrition. So macronutrients, early macronutrient undernutrition will cause lower IQ scores, we can reduce school success and behavioral dysregulation. Because protein undernutrition in the mother will land with IUGR, smaller brains with reduced RNA and DNA content, fewer neurons, reduced concentration of neurotransmitters and growth factors, and therefore altogether affects neurodevelopment. Other vitamins are, one is vitamin B. Those born in winter had a higher incidence of schizophrenia. This is a study which showed that, and the fetus is wholly dependent on the maternal provision of vitamin D. There's no way that this fetus can produce vitamin D. So it produces morphologically different brains in the offspring if there's vitamin D deficiency. And vitamin D has a role in brain size, ventricular size, cell proliferation, and growth factor signaling. So this is important. Now the effect of maternal vitamin D deficiency on IQ have been mixed. There have been studies checking vitamin D in the mother and baby, and the baby's overall IQs and other language and other developmental issues. There are some studies, 4 studies which showed favorable, some studies which had no effect. Because there's one study that showed that at 7 years, the WISC was much better when the maternal vitamin D status incorporated vitamin D was good. Better language abilities, higher Bailey scales, and lower risk of ADHD. These studies were there, but there were other studies which showed that didn't predict this good scores at 5 years and the VABI at 9 years. So there are mixed studies on vitamin D. So the significance of this vitamin D, why these studies are so inconsistent, is that there are assessments and study time points are different, and epidemiological analysis of the established data sets are different. So mothers who are vitamin D deficient are generally of low socioeconomic status. They are vulnerable to a lot of virus infections and their therapeutic substances like alcohol and tobacco, and they're most likely to be undernourished than the other mothers. So therefore, many other factors come into play, and therefore the effect of vitamin D cannot be analyzed even with regression analysis. What about iron? This is the #1 nutrition issue in the world. Iron deficiency prenatally and in infancy can cause irreversible neural issues. Maternal hypertension and smoking during pregnancy are known to cause a decrease in maternal fetal transport of iron. So the studies have shown that if you have maternal hypertension or smoking in pregnancy, the maternal fetal transport of iron is less. And gestation diabetes results in higher fetal need for iron. So iron supplementation will support neural energy and metabolism, development of dendrites and synapses, synthesis of neurotransmitters, and the onset of myelination. The timing is important. Timing and duration of iron insufficiency is very important. So iron deficiency in the first 30 weeks of pregnancy, you have higher incidence of autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, and intellectual disability. So relative to the mothers who are diagnosed later in pregnancy. So therefore, it is so important that the early iron, all these vitamins, all these nutritional factors should be there right when conception starts. So before that, all this has to be in order. So timing and longer duration of insufficiency led to severe and diagnosable issues. So the consequence of prenatal iron stores, iron deficiencies have shown that suboptimal outcomes are more likely to be irreversible even after you replenish the iron later. That is what you must understand, that if there is the defect that is produced because of iron deficiency early in pregnancy, it is not reversible. The CNS doesn't regenerate. That said, iron accretion by the fetus in the 3rd trimester is quite high. And once the iron accumulates in the fetal brain, it does not deplete. So despite this, that is the 3rd trimester, you get a lot of iron being accrued by the by the fetus, and this is stored in the fetal brain. This is not depleted, but still, if it is in the first trimester that the iron deficiency is there, it will have some long-standing effects. Importantly, in the third trimester, the system pulls on the maternal iron reserves that are required before conception. So therefore, women of the childbearing age group need to consume appropriate amounts of bioavailable iron if they have to have stores needed to support fetal development, especially if they plan to have another child before the stores have a chance to rebuild. Now, what does postnatal nutrition got to do? Again, iron is important. Iron during infancy appears to cause long-standing and irreparable damage to the neural tissues and neurotransmitter function. So iron deficiency at 9 months of age has been related to concurrent delays in memory and attention development. So what are the follow-up of these children with iron deficiency anemia show? In Chile, you had subsequent supplementation did not change the. So if there was a subsequent supplementation of iron for a minimum of 6 months, evidence issued that the inhibitory control and reaction time at 10 years was relatively less in the IDA group. So despite the supplementation after 6 months, the iron deficiency in the first 6 months caused problems. Costa Rica also, the executive function memory at 19 years of age was relative to controls despite no IDA. So later in life, when it's checked at 5, 11, 14, 19 years, there was no iron deficiency anemia. It was only in the early first 6 months of life. And there, the early deficiencies of iron caused problems later in life. And even in the US, when you have the international adoptees, the iron deficient on arrival performed less well on a battery of neurodevelopment tests. So they had been in institutions in Africa, in Europe, in India, and they've been adopted by US citizens, and they came into US after 6 months to 9 months, and they continued to have problems with neurodevelopment. Though the higher incidence of ADHD was there, but the IQs had improved because of the environmental, all the other epigenetics that happened after they landed up in the US. So preventive strategies, because of the preference is afforded to RBCs, when ferritin is low, the brain is already severely iron deficient before the diagnosis of anemia is warranted. This means that the brain is not the first priority as when iron deficiency happens. It is the RBCs. So the brain is already severely iron deficient before the diagnosis of anemia is warranted. So this is something that we must understand. Therefore, the prevention is the key. Supplementation of high-risk mothers, delayed clamping of the umbilical cord, and supplementation of from birth of at-risk infants are suggested strategies. What about DHA? Now, there's a lot of talk about DHA. DHA is in prenatal also. DHA and choline is talked about, but there's no evidence. DHA is integral to the synaptic transmission neuronal fluidity that underlie all cognition. But mixed results, various studies show mixed results. There is little concrete evidence that DHA or DHA supplementation positively affects brain development and function. Genetic component of fatty acid status has been proven to be very, very complex. And recently they've realized that the humans can synthesize endogenous DHA from its precursors like alpha-linolenic acid. So the populations which produce endogenously the DHA, we cannot make out whether it is the external DHA or the endogenous DHA that is produced that is having the effect. So these are things that need to be very difficult to analyze. And supplementation studies in infants have shown that there are very few supplementation studies actually in choline, as far as choline are concerned, and therefore there is one study that showed that the higher betaine levels are related to better visuomotor development in toddlers. Infant choline supplementation is beneficial for neural inhibition development, presumably by improving the acetylcholine receptor activation. This has been noted as a risk factor for schizophrenia. But postnatal supplementation appears to mitigate symptomology only if it is started very early in life. So there's very little studies actually on choline as far as now DHA, choline, and the uridine, they seem to support each other in the plasticity of the brain. Breast milk, there are studies that show that brain development and cognitive function at 6 months is because of DHA and choline. They work together to support recognition and memory. Now, DHA, as you know, depends on phosphatidylcholine for transport to the brain. So therefore, the mixed results of RCTs on DHA supplementation could be the result in part due to unabsorbed background diet. So therefore, if choline is not there, then DHA may not work. So there are so many other factors that involve the neural development. You can't assess a single nutritional supplement as a cause for as a criteria for improving neural development. Zinc, no significant effect of early zinc implementation in child cognitive and motor outcomes. I will not deal on that because of waste of time. And vitamin B12 is required for neural development and myelination. Maternal deficiency, 2/3 of the 48 reports reported developmental regression in infants if there was vitamin B12 deficiency in the mother. Nerve demyelination, cerebral atrophy were noted. Maternal B12 supplementation, there is no difference in the global cognitive scores at 9 months. So this is something that, vitamin B12 is also been said that it will cause a lot of issues, but the studies don't show it. And unsupplemented mothers have higher plasma homocysteine concentrations that were associated with poor infant scores in some domains. So these are some studies which need to be worked out further. So these are the areas where you have positive effects. There are studies which show negative effects. Preconception, choline metabolites, iron, protein, iodine, all have positive effects. Prenatal, vitamin D, iron, DHA and choline, there are studies for and against, but for iron, there is always only positive report. Similarly, postnatally, iron is the one that has got positive reports, no negative. Now, this is a chart which I will not go into detail. It is to show you that there is which function of the brain is affected by which nutrient, and whether the risk during late gestation and 0 to 3 years of age, how it is, what areas are affected. This chart, I will not go into detail. I think the PG can take a picture of this. Similarly, these are studies which have shown that the nutrient, the main brain processes that are affected, evidence for critical periods, and early deficiency results in adult dysfunction, and wherever there is epigenetic mechanisms which also affect long-term effect. And most of them are positive in this chart. I think I will not go into details of this because of lack of time. So intervention, preconceptional period is most important. Nutritional counseling of women of childbearing age group is absolutely important. Screening for common nutrient deficiency is important. Maintaining a healthy maternal body weight is important. And weight management and reduction of obesity exceedingly important. So to summarize, I would say the timing, dose, and duration of nutrient intake is absolutely important. And this is something that we need to emphasize in all our national programs. There are sensitive periods for nutritive action. So therefore, these sensitive periods need to be realized. Some may even reach critical periods, meaning that certain nutrients, if not received at a particular time, that critical period, the results can be profound and irreversible as far as, like for instance, iron. Background genetics and epigenetics determine the individual's level of need and the ability to metabolize a given nutrient. That is something that will vary from race to race, nation to nation, country to country. So we need to know what our genetics and epigenetics are regarding the utilization of nutrients in our society. The prenatal and postnatal nutrition should match. If the prenatal nutrition is, it should be the same postnatally, otherwise we'll have problems of the Barker hypothesis. So if you have average nutrition prenatally, average nutrition should continue postnatally to provide similar nutritional experience for the baby and the growing brain. Nutrients do not appear in nature in isolation. Everything is there together. So thus, it is safe to assume that they do not work in isolation. So as we have said, most of these studies have focused on one particular nutrient, and you don't know how much the other nutrients have helped in the process of neurodevelopment. And therefore, it is very difficult to pinpoint a deficit, whether one deficit is the cause for the inability to develop neurologically. Once the basis of a particular nutrient mechanism's action is established, synergisms should be. That is another very important statement. That if you are definite about the mechanism of action of a particular nutrient, then you could find out what are the other nutrients which are supporting it and analyze it with a good regression analysis to see what is the effect of one by keeping the effect of the others constant by good regression analysis. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your informative session. You have dealt in detail about the first 0 to 1000 days. That is from 0 to 3 years. About the prenatal nutrition, perinatal, as well as postnatal nutrition aspects in detail, including the micro and macro elements, on special emphasis on vitamin D3 and other important elements, which are either directly or indirectly affect or shows impact on the neuronal development of the child. Thank you very much, sir, for your in detail presentation. Now, I would like to introduce the second speaker, Dr. S. Sri Krishna. He is currently working as head of the department of the pediatrics at Apollo Institute of Medical Sciences and Research, Hyderabad. And he completed undergraduation from Usmania Medical College. And he is having 20 years of experience. And he completed MD DNB Pediatrics from Nilofer Hospital, Usmania Medical College. And he worked as secretary of Twin Cities of IAP, Indian Academy of Pediatrics. And at present, he is representing the Telangana as an executive member at Central Indian Academy of Pediatrics. And he is having so many publications at national and international level. Almost 9 publications are there till now. And he is very much interested in the training of CPR, pediatric ALS, NRP, and childhood asthma and allergy. And he is having special interest in community pediatrics as well as preventive medicine. And also he is having social responsibility. He trained more than 8,000 school-going children in effective hand washing as well as first aid measures. And he worked as a medical advisor to reduce the neonatal mortality in 484 villages of Mahbubnagar district of Telangana state. And he has given more than 2,000 TV shows and TV shows as well as newspaper articles about the pediatric health in various veteran publications. Thank you very much. And I welcome Dr. S. Sri Krishna.
Very good afternoon to everyone. And thank you one and all for attending this meeting. And most of my topic is introduction, and most of the important points are already covered by Jason sir. My way of dealing is towards a consultant or a practitioner side. He has given, Jason sir has given many scientific proofs the importance of each individual nutrient, and how to make it more practical, and how to convert so that our patients can understand. So I am trying to cover most of these topics. Myself, Dr. Sri Krishna, HOD of Pediatrics, Apollo Institute of Medical Sciences, and this introduction is already given by Mr. Jagadish. Thank you very much. My topic is broadly divided into basic introduction, the cognition, what is the importance of cognition, and nutrition. And the second is a nutrition effect over cognition in infancy. Then how we divide that. Everyone knows the typical scientific classification of foods, but in pertaining to the cognition of the child, how we can get the information. Then the fourth is practical methods of food preparations. And finally, food taboos, mistakes that result in poor development of the child. I'll try to, though the slide content is a little bit scientific, I'll try to give more of practical aspects, because most of the scientific data is already given by Jason sir. Even in my slides also, I have removed most of the scientific research paper names, because it looks very cloudy. So the research on development, early brain development, has almost explored in last 20 decades, 2 decades very well. Though when we were students, just before that, we used to see whenever the child with cerebral palsy or developmental delay or some other problem related to the cognition, we used to think that this is over. We can treat all other diseases except this particular disease. So, but what I have noticed in last 2 decades, there's a lot of research have come, and so many new findings also coming with a very encouraging results. So it is known today that the infant brain is known to be influenced by multiple factors like emotional factor, biological factor, environmental factor, and nutritional factors. So which can influence the potential in the developing child. So once the child is born with any defect of, we need not stop there by saying that this is just a birth problem, we can't do anything. There's a lot we can do. Even in a borderline cerebral palsy child with also can be improved to normalcy by effective stimulation therapies and along with the good nutrition. Regarding the nutrition, the poor nutrition and neurotrophins, they can suppress neurocognitive functions and can change the actual brain structure also, causing developmental delay. One best example is folate deficiency, which can alter even the brain structure and the spine structure also. And at the same time, appropriate interventions that affect early biological or environmental stressors on the developing infant brain, they can change the negative outcome to a positive one. That means even if you notice little bit late that this child is having this particular neurological problem, then by appropriate intervention and by starting improving his nutrition, definitely we can bring back the child to almost normalcy, if not for every case. So the old say that you become what you eat. This everyone nowadays keep on hearing, but I used to listen as a child when my grandfather also used to tell this particular aspect, that you become what you eat. So the food we eat influences our memory, comprehension, thinking, judgment, intellect, and emotions. Though this, we if you see only physical aspect of the food, then you may not believe this particular aspect, whether they really the food can influence so many aspects of psychological influences like memory, thinking, judgment, intellect, and emotions. And but one thing I can say, that if you are really fasting on that particular any day, from morning to evening, if you don't have food also, by evening you can notice a small little change in your emotion, thinking, and judgment also. uh, this is one reason I stopped fasting also, because evening time I am more busy in my clinic. So I noticed initially that there can be some change even in the mood. Fluctuations can change just by fasting. Of course, this the scientific way of fasting is a different aspect. So but the child who is suffering constantly with the deficiencies of particular aspects, it can have a long-term effects, and which may not be uh, again a recoverable condition. So the nutrition is not only a basic need to sustain life, but it's also for successful early development. This is an important aspect. So the better diet quality during the early hours of life may have a positive effect on cognitive ability later in childhood. This may not be known to nowadays most of the mothers. They always think that by giving high calorie diet, child should look plump, and in the initial period they don't think that what can influence their neurological activity, and what food is best. Every mother and father feels that their child should be intelligent, and their child should have very good, should get very good marks in the school period, and afterwards they should be very good, great professional. But the problem comes that initial first 2 to 3 years, they don't think that what food is good for the neurological development. They just mainly see that okay, this particular whether child is looking plump or not, looking good or obese or not, that's a Or many mothers feel that if the child is eating 3 times a day, um, if their mother, the child is eating 3 times a day, or whenever she feeds, if the child accepts, then immediately she feels satisfied. But she is not thinking whether this particular food is appropriate, not only physically, even for the mental growth or not. If you see the effect on brain development, already this particular point has been told by Jason sir. Here, there are specific nutrient deficiencies during early development on 5 neurological developmental process. Here, what are those neurological development process? You can see that a neuron proliferation, as we know that new cells of the nervous system develop only during in utero only. After that, the growth of the cells happens later, but the number of new cell production in later life is very less. So the whatever cell the new cells has to be produced in the CNS, in the in the brain. It has to be in the early stage, and if any deficiency is there, definitely the child will neuron development will get suffered. Similarly, the axon and dendrite growth, these are the dendrites you can see here. These will receive, just I'll though most of you know it, I want to just highlight for few people who are not much aware of these things, that this is a simple neuron structure which will receive, if you see that, this will receive connections from through dendrites from other neurons, and the information from other neurons, and it is received by these dendrites, and from the, this is a cell, and from there it is through axon, the rapidly that information goes to another neuron. So this for rapid action potentials, this is covered by myelin sheaths. This will, which will allow within a fraction of second, you can say that 1/100th second, the information quickly goes to the other areas. You can just see that if you touch a hot object, the moment you take it back, you take the hand back, but in that also the thousands of neurons are involved already in a fraction of seconds, so that your hand is going back. So this is a very fast process which require the proper development in the early stages of the life, first 1,000 years, as told that. And this is a synaptic synapse formation pruning function. Here is the synapse formation where this particular nerve is synapting with the other nerve, and this is about the myelination, and this is a new programmed cell death, so that the initially the n number of cells are produced in the CNS, and after that most of the cells will die and removed. Only few cells will remain, but still they are good enough to give our normal good brain function. Here, which cell will die? Though the number of cells are produced, only the cells which are used by us are the areas which are important, or which areas which are used by us will remain, and the areas which are not used by us, like some of the, like if a person is a good student, he may not be having good athletic body, so the areas concerned with physical exercise may not develop well in the brain itself. So that shows that there is a, initially in the newborn brain, it's there is a huge number of cells are there, where there is a lot of scope that the child can learn anything at that period. So this is about the neuron development, and these nutrients can affect at any stage. So nutrition deficiency, nutrient deficiency can have that early nutrition in the brain development. So you can see that this various activity of the brain will be very fast in the early, in the beginning, and slowly it will come down later. And here, what is the effect of nutrition over IQ? Here, the breastfeeding pattern at 6 months and the reports say that a breastfeeding pattern till complete 6 months, and homemade contemporary patterns at 15th and 24 months were associated with 1 to 2 point higher IQ. So our topic is about cognition and IQ. So this is this clearly shows that the breastfeeding and homemade foods are going to improve the IQ compared to the artificial foods. Similarly, the homemade traditional pattern like cooked vegetables and desserts at 6 months were positive. After 6 months, were positively associated with higher IQs, whereas the negative associations were found with the patterns characterized by ready prepared baby foods at 6 to and 15 months. So please avoid all readily prepared baby foods that are available outside. Just say okay for homemade foods only. Similarly, at all ages, higher scores on discrete patterns like characterized by biscuits, chocolates, sweets, soda, crisps were associated with 1 to 2 point lower IQ also. This is for whole life, it is like this. So nobody wants to their IQ will be less. So if you want better IQ, always vote for breastfeeding, exclusive breastfeeding for first 6 months, followed by homemade foods. That's important. Here, there are some proven effects on nutrition over the brain. This is already told by Jason sir, that already the maternal deficiency of folate and B12 can cause even anencephaly and spina bifida. I'm just skipping this. Here, in what way this is nutrition is going to affect the cognition? Here, here in two ways it can affect. One is when the child is deficient of any particular nutrient, his physical activity will be less. So obviously the child, when the physical activity is less, he may not play well, and in that way his learning skills will come down. On other hand, is a physical growth and health. When they both are poor, then the caregiver, let it be a mother or anybody else, they think that okay, child is small, he yet to learn many things. In future he will learn, because that we have seen the children with malnutrition not learning new skills much, whereas the child with the good nutrition learning new skills. Sometimes they put a challenge to the parents that how to engage this child, and how to tell new things, and how to make their child to learn new aspects. This is really challenging to the parents, and they also in search of learning many things, especially the software people. They go on, I've seen them, they are go on searching for new things, how to improve their child. So in this way, that good nutrition can have good cognition development in the child. So this is the effect that the study showed, that what is the effect of undernutrition and low stimulation. If the child is having undernutrition and low stimulation, his developmental score is below 0. Whereas the child with well nourished and high stimulation, it is above 0. Whereas if the combination is different, like well nourished but low stimulation, it's medium, and undernourished with high stimulation also, you may not achieve. That means, to whenever you are thinking about stimulation therapy of the child, see that nutrition also very important, so that he will improve. Now we'll just brief the type of foods. As everyone knows, the nutrition include carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, fiber, and water. These are broadly, we divide all foods into this group. So just I'll show one or two points about each aspect. Here, carbohydrates in infant nutrition and cognition. Here, these are, of course, everyone knows that these carbohydrates are important nutrient for weight gain. And if the last trimester mother is having less nutrition, and SGA babies will have known to have multiple problems in future. Similarly, they are important to maintain growth and weight patterns, so that the child can learn new skills by more activities. And regular intervals of the food carbohydrate is very important to prevent sugar fluctuation, because the sugar fluctuations in the early life is known to affect the cognition of the child. That means this tells that regular meals to the child. It is not just amount of in 24 hours. It is a regularity, that regular frequency you need to give the food to the child properly. Here mostly they are natural sugars like galactose, glucose related are preferred for 6 months, and later polysaccharides. Then afterwards the complex polysaccharides can be given. Now, what about the fats? So, fats means most of the times we consume the saturated fats, but the importance is about essential fatty acids. These are all very, very important for the membrane function and synapse function and myelination. I already told before lecture. And because here the 60% of the brain is made of fat, and half of the fat is omega-3 type. So they require in the initial period, both during pregnancy and after that also first 2 years, they need the food rich in essential fatty acids and especially omega-3 aspects. That's why the importance of DHA has come, that the fatty acids like DHA are necessary for myelination and leads to the hypothesis that supplementation of DHA in third trimester and the first year of birth may improve myelination in auditory pathway and later. So there are multiple studies regarding this. Coming to the proteins, yes, the children who have the Kwashiorkor picture or the low protein, they are slow in activities, and this is well known because the proteins are very, very important for all enzymes are proteins only. All reactions, enzymatic reactions, metabolisms happen through protein only. The people, if they are suffering with the children suffering with the protein deficiency, and definitely it will affect this particular. Is it a big thing to tell about proteins? Because what I have noticed in most of the mothers, that they are giving plain rice with some rasam or something or little curd or something, without adding the protein sources in the first 1 year of life. They think that child may not digest all these things. So the adequate protein intake is very, very important for them. Otherwise their cognition will come down. This regarding the vitamins in brief, yes, vitamin E is known to shield the cell membranes for free radical damage that slows the mental decline. So it's not only in adults and old age people, even for children also, vitamin E is very, very important. Previously we used to give vitamin E drops even for the preterm children, but nowadays they are all mixed in the foods also, and even the mother milk also is having a little quantity of vitamin E, but it is linked with the free radical damage. Vitamin C also linked with the free radical injury, and it protects brain from this free radical injury. And vitamin D is associated with frequent infections, which can hamper both physical and mental growth of the child. And thiamine is known to it's a very, very important for the brain development and function, as we know that the thiamine is the initial step for the glucose to enter into the Krebs cycle. So and very important role in the carbohydrate metabolism. The people who suffer, children who suffer with thiamine deficiency, their Krebs cycle will be affected, and that results in cell structure, membrane structure, function, and synaptic formation and function also will be affected. Vitamin B6 is promote production of serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine to support good concentration in the child. Similarly, B12, it regulates sugar levels and maintain myelination. So this shows that so many vitamins are very, very important during pregnancy and after 1 year of age also. Let us come to the micronutrients. These also most of the points are dealt by Jason sir. And zinc is crucial for the nerve signaling, and it is in animal. Their typical animal studies has shown that zinc deficiency can cause deficits in activity, attention, learning, and memory. So yeah, the human studies were less, but it has been studied in animals very well that zinc is very, very important for the proper cognition. And copper is also important for the control of nerve signals, and especially uh, in preventing neurodegenerative disorders, it has some role. And iodine, as it's an important component of thyroid hormone, as we know that the hypothyroidism in initial stages has a very it can cause irreversible damage to the brain. Though you nowadays these the studies, thyroid studies, are done in the newborn period to detect early, and these are supposed to be the most preventable cause of mental retardation. Magnesium is important for the learning and memory related to migraine and epilepsy in later life. And iron, of course, it has a multiple ways. It can cause impaired brain function. You can see these are all the micronutrient deficiencies which can affect the normal anatomy of fetal brain, and it can cause neurocognitive impairment. They can influence adult psychopathology. That means that if they are the newborn is affected with micronutrient deficiency, and in later life also it can give problems, and greater anxiety and depression in adulthood. Uh, just these are one simple example of iron deficiency, which showed that iron deficiency in first 1 year can cause poor emotional regulation in childhood because of the altered dopamine dependent pathway, and later in that will cause rule breaking nature, and in the adolescent period that's a deficit in control, and it also implicated to excessive problematic alcohol usage and high risk sexual behavior. That means the iron deficiency in early period in infancy can have later effects also. So these are all the problems what we are facing now with the youth, that the alcoholism, abnormal sexual behaviors, and depression, and these are all implicated. They have their roots in the first 1 year of life, which we need to attention. So the pediatricians and all doctors and even the mothers also need to give good attention for these aspects, so that the child during first 1 year is not going to suffer with the iron deficiency. What the problem here is, whenever I have a habit of advising iron drops in the first 1.5 month onwards, 1.5 month onwards, and almost throughout the 1 year, because it is a non-palatable or it gives a dark color to the stools. Many mothers try to avoid it, and and at the 1 year I have found that many are anemic still. So this is the effect how the iron deficiency can cause. These are multiple effects over the brain, gene and neurochemistry, neuroanatomy will be affected, protein profiling, and it will affect the behavior like neurophysiological, cognitive, sensory motor, and even the regulatory processes. And finally, it has an environmental input also. So the iron deficiency has a multiple effects over the brain. So we and such a simple medicine are but awareness is really poor regarding the iron deficiency. Even in our hospital also have seen almost 60% of children, let them be around 1 year or even the around school children, they are suffering with iron deficiency anemia. So what type of food, infantile food, is best? So till now we told about little science. Now how to make it in a practical way? Of course, there is no other alternative for breast milk. 0 to 6 completed months, it is breast milk only, so that the child will have a better cognition. Here regarding the many times when we ask why the child require breast milk only, the mother's knowledge is limited to that the child will have ready-made food easy to give, and nowadays because they find it that we can purchase other foods, we can give it. But the thing is, you can fill the stomach with any type of milk, and you can build the body also with any type of milk, but for the brain it is a breast milk only. So breast milk babies are proven to have better IQ, better emotional quotient than other feeds, and giving more than just giving how breast milk going into the brain and giving improving the brain is one aspect, but giving breast milk itself is an enjoyable event for the baby, and it gives feeling of security. It improves confidence to the babies, which is very, very important for the better cognition, because we have seen that the smile of a baby, exclusive breastfed baby, is a different from the smile of a baby on top milk. Though all children are cute only, but definitely this baby will have more secured type of smile. I have noticed around 6 months or 8 months also. So all reasons or complaints related to the not getting sufficient breast milk are more self-created, or I can say society created. There is nothing like not sufficient breast milk. Why this is why breastfeeding alone? We can say that this is an evolutionary necessity, as you can see that the reptiles are not having neocortex and they lack maternal affection, whereas the non-human mammals like dogs and other things, they have evolved neocortex, and the maternal affection is only for transient period, whereas human beings who have evolved neocortex, the bonding is there for lifetime generations. What is the difference? The reptiles, human dogs and human beings in the food type, there is not much difference if the what outside food, but it is the breast milk that makes difference the in the brain activity of human beings. So don't expect a better brains and better quality and better character of the society without giving attention to these particular aspects. So these are all the different studies which shows that the breast milk has a better cognitive functions. The breast milk babies have better cognition. Come to the infantile food after 6 months, that is 7 to 12 months age. So it should be homemade. I already told that importance of homemade food. That's also very, very important for the better brain function and brain development. And it should be right consistency, that it should be have include all the nutrients what I have told already before, and it should be soft enough so that child can have it, and it should be easy to digest, inexpensive. This is an important aspect, that where most of our middle class and lower middle class people, they just give plain rice or little rasam or something. I have seen, though actually thinking that the actual good food means that it's a costly food. So this need not be that, and you can get for a less cost also, and it should be locally available and culturally acceptable. That means the supplementary foods, complementary foods should have all these characters, so that the child can have better brain development. So the type of foods you need not, people will get doubt how to convert. When we talk about the science, they ask about how it is. So energy sources, rice and wheat, but please include millets also. You can include in the first 1 year, that means after 6 months, and try to give that, so that the child can get more micronutrients also, and good fiber also. The protein sources, don't think that pulses fish cannot be digested by the children. So the child can well digest the pulses also. Please include the pulses very well. And vitamins sources like greens and fruits, and micronutrients like fruits, nuts and seeds. Try to include one after other, so that the child will have all 6 types of important nutrients what I mentioned in the initially. Different food interventions are nowadays there, that iron folate supplements to the mother, and during pregnancy and afterwards. These about that. And the last slide, that the food taboos and mistakes that result in poor development of the child. So these are the actually everything. This knowledge is there in the books. This knowledge is nowadays the media is there to give this knowledge, and even our ancient people also, that few generations back also, they know all these things. But we are the present generation, we are losing all these because of the different food taboos. Here, 0 to 6 months, what are the main mistake is not giving breast milk at all is a major mistake, and giving both milks also is a mistake, that mother milk and other milks also, and giving water also. These are major mistake what I have noticed. And 7 to 12 months is actually not starting the complementary food on time is a mistake, because some people start too early, like 4 months, some at 8 months, 9 months, and not giving adequate amounts. This is also thing that the child, they receive hardly 1 time and 2 times. And giving stored foods, I can say that are artificially prepared foods from outside, and giving low quality foods, that's giving only like, as I told, that only plain rice or little bit and poor in pulses and other things. These are all the different mistakes what our people are doing it, and we need to educate the people regarding this matter, so that they can have a better children with a good brain development. At this time, I just I dedicate this topic to my beloved sir, Dr. P. Sudarshan Reddy, who has included in his consultation, his chamber, and even in his booklet also, that clearly told that after 6 months of age, in addition to breast milk, your child needs other foods like rice, dal, everything, and included everything should be given, and never include commercially manufactured baby foods. This is a slogan which he has raised, and he, with the out of interest, he has observed that so various places what they are giving, and then he found that the kanji kit, what is there given in the South India, is a mixture of different millets, cereals, and pulses, which is supposed to cover all nutrients. So he made an interest of making them as available near his clinic and in a working hospital also, so that the people can prepare powder of it and can do that. The here nothing is great, all are easily available at less cost. Only thing is you have to prepare and give it to the children. So make it more practical, because you are just having intention that my child should be very intelligent. Just having intention is not sufficient. You need to make it practical by putting your effort in making a good, nutritious, homemade diet along with good love and affection. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Sri Krishna, for a detailed explanation about the cognition in infants and the role of nutrition, and the dietary recommendations for the parents, and also effects of nutrition over intelligence quotient. And also he explained in detail about the interaction with the environment in which the child is existing, and also the role of genetics, epigenetics, that is environment, and nutrigenetics, the role of the nutrition regarding the child's development, and the role of proteins, carbohydrates, vitamins, and lipids in infant diet. And also he explained about the iron deficiency, the connection between the two B's, that is brain and behavior. And he explained lastly that the myths and superstitious beliefs in developing countries, what the parents are following, and how they are showing, how it is showing impact on the child development. Thank you very much for your functional presentation.
Thank you.
Which is reachable, you know. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now I would like to call upon the third speaker of this today's webinar, Dr. K. Pavan Kumar. He is working as Associate Professor of Pediatrics in MNR Medical College, Hyderabad, Telangana. And he has a fellowship in allergy and asthma and immunology, and postgraduate diploma in pediatric nutrition, Boston, United States of America. And also is a postgraduate program in pediatric psychology, instructor for PALS, BLS, NRP, ATM. And also he received many awards, the Best Researcher Award for the year of 2016 and 2018, MNR Educational Trust, and the National Award winner of Dr. Bala Gopal Raju Gold Medal for the Best Scientific Research Paper in 2010, and received Dr. Y.R. Reddy State Gold Medal and Dr. Chandrasekhar Chowdhury Gold Medal in the year 2009. And also he received a Vaidya Ratna Award for the academic year of 2014 I welcome Dr. K. Pavan Kumar to this webinar. Over to Dr. K. Pavan Kumar.
First of all, let me thank Dr. Jagadish for giving me this opportunity and for the generous introduction.
Thank you.
And my salutation to my teacher, Dr. Sri Krishna sir, the earlier speaker, who has set the tone of the conference theme that children are what they eat. But after that very informative lecture, I'm going to take you through another scintillating talk on how we eat or feed matters. That is very important. So the bhava with which the child is fed is also important, more than important I can say, than what we eat. So it is there in our Vedas also, Ashtanga Hrudayam Sutra, which says that Tanmana Bhojana Gataha Chittaha. That means concentrating one mind on the food while eating is very, very important. What we think while eating, that is positive or negative, and how thankful or grateful we are for the food we eat, impacts on our psychology and also affect our digestion. I think this is very pertinent if I tell you an example. The state of mind we have while consuming food is very, very important. I think we all know the famous Pavlov's experiment, right? The Russian scientist who did experiments on dog, right? Pavlov's reflex and all in 1890s, right? So he also did an experiment with the cats. Most of us don't know this, but what he did is he gave food to cats and measured the digestive juices secreted while they are eating. And suddenly one day he brought the dog in front of the cat when the cat is about to eat. So what he found is that cats were scared and their gastric juice output was almost nil. So dear friends, it is not what we eat, and how we eat or how we feed the child also matters a lot. So fear would not allow even a little bit of food to be properly digested. So before going into the talk, we need to differentiate between, I think we should be clear about what is eating and what is feeding. Eating involves the individual, but the feeding involves the interaction between the mother and the child. And today we are talking about the breakdown of the interaction between the mother and the child, where either of them has the capacity to aggravate the feeding arrangement and only the mother has the capacity to improve it. And we, the pediatricians, the custodians of the future child, we have the responsibility to aid in that improvement of feeding arrangement. So with that introduction, let's go into the topic of prescription for fussy eaters. So Dr. Sri Krishna sir is also co-author in this study, which we have conducted in Hyderabad in preschool age group. So the prevalence of picky eating and behavior, I had an opportunity to present it even in our international conference of Asia Pacific Pedicon. So is it really fussy eating is really a problem? Is it really a problem are you facing? Yes. We the pediatricians are in and day out, we encounter the mothers saying this problem so commonly. Even in our study, we found it is almost to the tune of 65% and above. The incidence of picky eating is more than 60% and above in my study. And what its impact on the child, on the growth and development of the child and also on the family, let's see that. So this is from my study, so which is published in the International Journal of Contemporary Pediatrics, which states here you can clearly see as the age increases, the picky eating behavior also increases. The mean weight in children compared to the picky eaters and non-picky eaters, that is statistically significantly important. And not only the weight, but the mean height also. You know, there is a difference in the mean height also. And we all know this. The picky eaters, if you see, the picky eaters were 2 times more likely to be underweight as non-picky eaters. The weight is also less, the height is also less, and also the BMI in the picky eaters, you can see clearly, is also very, very less. No mother wants the child to be, you know, short or stunted. Not only that, the picky eating not only it affects the only growth, but also the development. I think this slide gives the importance of how low quality mental developments among the picky eaters. The learning disability is more, and poor verbal ability is also more, and negative interpersonal relationships in the picky eaters is very high. There was an interesting study. I think this is an important statement I would like to underline. It was found that mental developmental index scores, the MDI scores of the Bailey of picky eaters were 11 and 14 points below healthy eaters. Dear friends, no mother wants the child to be a mentally subnormal child, right? So we have, the pediatricians have the responsibility to help this mother in this. So what is this negative interpersonal relationship? I would like to tell you a story. It's a Dr. Feldman is a psychologist. She's a psychologist from Israel. She conducted an interesting study where she interviewed the mothers, and without their knowledge, she recorded what is the interaction of the mother and the child interaction during feeding and also during the play. What she found was whatever the emotions evoked or attitudes evoked during the feeding time, the negative emotions, that was overspilled even during the play. That was detected as affectionate touch in terms of warmth and embrace, and the negative touch in terms of control and stern behavior. So that was recorded, and she found that the affectionate touch is much lower in the picky eaters, and the negative touch is very high. So this is not during feeding, my dear friends. This is during the play. So that means this clearly states that the negative emotions which were evoked, there is always a fight, there is always a war between the mother and the child while feeding. It's like a war zone, Tom and Jerry show only. I think most of the homes you can witness that. So that not only that has an effect even during the play. The negative touch is more during the play also, which is very, very bad. After that, now let us see how to handle this, how to win this fight over that issue. We will see as a stepwise manner. Because the time is very short, I would like to go a little bit fast. So what we need to do when the mother comes and addresses that, most of the pediatricians, we say that, oh, you are kidding. The child is active and playful. He must be definitely eating. That's what we say, and we'll push the mother off. Or otherwise, if you are very bored and all, you say that, you will give some enzymatic preparation or multivitamin supplement and you will say goodbye. So, but when mother comes with that, complaint saying that my child is really having trouble eating, then please acknowledge it with that respect. Because she has paid you the consultation, because we have approach for everybody, everything, every fever, vomitings and abdominal pain. But we don't have approach when the mother comes and says this. Today I'm going to give you that approach which has made me a special pediatrician in my area. Okay. So first we need to ask about the focus history, that is diet and physical examination. I'm telling you, these are the steps we are going to see. Focus history and diet and examination, accurate anthropometry step 2, step 3, rule out this one by one we'll see. Okay. The first step is diet history. Whenever the mother says that, tell the mother, you show that interest that you are really interested in the kid and ask about the diet history. Always ask about 5 anchor food groups: the fruits, vegetables, the grain, cereals, and protein and dairy. If all these 5 anchor foods are there in the diet, you can reassure the mother nothing to worry. So better to take a food diary. 24 hours recall method is the best. And diet history is very, very important to make mother that child is getting enough calories. And that also give you a clue that in which food group the child is missing up. Second is thorough physical examination to look for any vitamin or mineral deficiencies which are obvious on the child's face and all. We all well versed and we all know, and Dr. Sri Krishna sir and Dr. G. Muni sir also elaborated what are the effects of these micronutrient deficiencies. So we need to check those micronutrient deficiencies. If you find anything on that, put them on prescription. So please write these steps on your prescription. I think that will make 2 pages full. So take the diet history and the physical examination findings, you note down on the prescription. Once that is done, go for an accurate anthropometry and the growth charts. This is very, very important, my friends. So there is an ultrasonic height measuring instrument is available. I am using this. This is really good. It will give you a very accurate height, because if you check those charts, even 2 centimeters less, which is shown on the charts by your receptionist, so that may make the child fall into 2 percentiles less. So which is very important for us. And always have an accurate weighing scales, like digital weighing scale like this. So spend on this, no doubt. And the growth charts are important part of evaluating even the picky eating children. Once you have done thorough examination and diet history and followed by correct anthropometrics, the third step is rule out red flags. This is very, very important. Why? because mother is worried that when the child is not eating properly, she will fear that the child is not growing properly and child is going to die because of hunger and all those things. So no child will die of hunger, that we know, but the mother doesn't know. So put down on the paper, ask the mother whether the child is having any pain while eating, or any episodes of aspiration, or the child is having a failure to thrive, or the child is born premature, are there any developmental delay, or any pain, apparent pain during feeding, any odonophagia we call it, and there is any history of persistent vomitings and regurgitations or diarrhea also, if you ask them, then we'll get some clue that the child is also having organic illness, which can be evaluated further with investigations and can be treated effectively, right? And also the chronic cardiorespiratory symptoms. These are the organic symptoms which you will ask the mother and put down if there are there on the prescription. And the behavioral red flags also to be asked. This one we are going to see elaborately: abnormal parental feeding practices, how they are affecting the feeding, and food fixations. I think sir also told about the food taboos, which the mother, they have the food fixation. This should be eaten with this should not be eaten this, like that. During illness, this child should not be given any foods. During diarrhea, child should not be fed at all, like that. Some food fixations are there that should be addressed properly. Once you know these behavioral and organic red flags, mother will be definitely reassured, because these are the danger signs, these are the clues to the problematic situation which you have already ruled out. So once you have ruled out the organic red flag, the step number 4 and 5 are addressed here. So you need to know about the parenting styles and the feeding disorders. So for as the time is less, and also to make it simple, I have made only 3 parenting styles which are very, very common, and also 3 feeding disorders. These are the three which we are going to discuss today. Only 3, because the time is also not having, and for the simplicity, I've made it only 3 topics each. So how to identify the parental feeding style? There are many. I think Diana Baumrind, she is the psychologist from California. She has designed these feeding styles. She has formulated these feeding styles. So I will make you very simple. So just ask the mother where, when, and what, and how much. What's happening in this area? This is when to feed the child, where to feed the child, what to feed the child, and how much to feed the child. Ask the mother, like what's happening, who has a say, whether the mother is deciding these things, whether the child is deciding these things. Based on this, you can classify them as responsive, controlling, and neglectful or indulgent parenting. Because India, I don't see any neglectful parents, but these 3 are very, very common, which we are going to discuss today. So remember these 3 questions and these questions. If there is a clear demarcation between the mother and the child, that mother, her responsibility is she should take care of only these 3 things, and the child should decide only on how much. Okay, if the reverse happens, then see what will happen. So based on these questions, we are going to know feeding styles. So can anybody tell what is this feeding style? When the mother says that my child decides the daily menu, my child shows me where and when to feed her, I do all this because she allows me to push in more food. Can you tell, anybody tell what's happening here? Here, mother, not the mother, that the child is deciding what to eat, when to eat, where to eat, and how much to eat, also decided by the mother. So this type of parenting is called indulgent parenting. So everything, only the child has the say here. Mother has no say. Whatever the mother's child says, the mother will prepare and she will give. If the child doesn't like idli, she will prepare dosa for her. If that is, she doesn't like that, she will prepare noodles. If she doesn't even prefer that, then she will immediately prepare ice cream. So that's what the indulgent mother do. In the terms of love, she is presenting that is indulgent parenting. So what, when, where, and how much, all categories are decided by the child himself. No, mother has no say there. Can anybody tell what is this feeding style? I often beg my child to eat more. I bribe my child dessert if he or she eats extra food. I frequently force my child to take at least a bite of food. So this type of parenting is called controlling parenting. Here, the mother is deciding what to eat, where to eat, when to eat, and how much to eat also is decided by the mother only. So earlier it was the child, now it is only the mother deciding all the 4 areas of feeding. So that will result in a controlling parenting. This is have a very negative effect on the child, and these two children may result in either overweight or obese in the future, because they likely to eat more of junk food, less of healthy nutrition. And the third category, which is most important, which we are going to, once we identify the mother to be a controlling type of parent or indulgent type of parent, we will motivate the mother to go into a responsive parenting. Let's see what are the characteristics of responsive feeding style. So here the mother says that I sit and eat with my child. Here the mother is modeling feeding. I don't let my child eat in between set meals and snack time, because that will suppress the hunger. I serve healthy foods and let my child choose what he or she wants to eat. So she is giving the choice for the baby also, like what to eat. And I don't force my child to eat when he or she is not hungry. So this is very, very important. When the child is not hungry, if the mother tries to force feed, I think we have seen in some of the houses, the whole family will be there for feeding. Some grandfather will hold the legs, the grandmother will hold the hands, and the mother will try to push the spoonful of food into the child's mouth. So we see all those things, right? So identify the feeding style of the mother and correct the feeding style. Unless you correct the feeding style, unless you raise the mother, so ask the mother to raise themselves before they raise the children. That is very, very important. Okay. And feeding time usually is a battle time for the most of the parents, but we pediatricians should make that fighting time, or the stressful environment which is happening during the feeding, into a more pleasant bonding experience for the family. That is our role, remember that. So the better way, what you understand, the responsive feeding style is very, very important. Here the responsive mother will decide what, where and when, and she will allow the child to decide how much he should eat. Okay, that is the responsive feeding. So feed your child when or she is hungry. Respect the hunger cues and satiety cues, and don't make your child eat when he is full. Respect his satiety center when it says that satiety cues. Eat with your child and model good eating. That is a good model behavior. Trust your child to eat as much as he or she needs. Talk positively with your child about food and eating. Establish set meals. We will nothing but water and variety of foods. This we'll see in a while also. Once we have understood different parenting styles based on what, where, when, and how much, now we'll see what are the 3 different common feeding disorders which are there in the feeding styles. But otherwise, unless you know what feeding disorder the child has, how can you treat them properly? So the first feeding disorder, which is most common even in my study, is the parental misperception. So these parents, they compare with elder sibling or younger sibling, and otherwise their neighbor children with their children. So by comparing that, they will feel that the child is not eating properly. So this makes should make them understand, like 5 fingers, all 5 fingers are different. So you can't say each has its own role. So this child who is born small, who is growing small as per the growth chart, is fine, is doing fine. This child is eating less because he's small, not because he eating less he's become small. Okay, that point, if you drive them to understand, then the problem is gone. So how to do that also we'll see. So we should make them understand the normal growth by putting the growth potential. What is the child's growth potential? And if you ensure that 4 anchor foods which we discussed, that is there in the diet, that is more than enough. Always remember, this is the tagline: do not pressure, do not force feed the child. You know what will happen, right? When cat is about to eat, when the dog is brought, what happened? Gastric juices are totally nil in that stomach of the cat. So that's what happens if you force feed the child. Okay. So best thing is plot it on the growth chart, show them the growth potential of the child, calculate that, and the mothers, they will believe that as per the growth potential child is growing. This will reassure their anxiety and worry. Second most common thing is the poor appetite, who is a infantile anorexia. So I think you might have seen these children, the moment they enter into your chamber, they will pull your stethoscope, pull and put everything, all the key instruments on the table into the floor. So these are the kids, they have a small child, this is a small child with poor sense of hunger and the poor growth. These children also grow less. So we have seen even in our studies, infantile anorexics, the mean height and weight and also the BMI is very less compared to the non-eaters, and they have a very poor sense of hunger. They itself, they are built like that, but they are very extremely engaged and active. They are interested in everything but eating. So these children, they eat a lot of different food, but in small quantities only. So this we call as a infantile anorexia. I think from now onwards, you will put on your prescription the label, the diagnosis as infantile anorexia, parental misperception, like that, right? Are you confident now? Yes. How to deal these guys? So understand that this is not as same as anorexia in older children. We studied, right, in adolescents, anorexia, bulimia nervosa, anorexia nervosa. This is not the same as that, but they have poor sense of hunger. The goal is to train the child to recognize the hunger and fullness and set meals. For them, the setting meals and snack time is very, very important, because that will encourage them to eat. So every 3 to 4 hours, and remember this point, nothing but water in between. Why I am saying this is very important is, our Indian mothers, they feed after every hour, they will try to give one or other food to the child. Okay. And no pressure or bribing the child to eat, and follow the 8 principles, which we'll see. And the third most common category is a highly selective group. I think you might have seen, right? Some parents will come with that intention that my child drinks only milk, doctor. My child doesn't even eat any green food. So these children, they reject specific foods based on the taste, texture, smell, or appearance. So no matter how tasty it is, how healthy it is, they don't take, they just simply reject it. Okay. So, but they don't have a no immediate, unless it is a very mild one, nothing to worry. But always remember, you need to provide a healthy choices and the positive environment. This is very, very important, my dear friends. Not only the nutrition, the nurturing environment is very, very important, and the pleasant mother-child interaction is the key factor. Okay, provide the healthy choices to the baby. So children are more willing to try better or novel foods when served with a dip or sauce. So if that is little bit bitter, then otherwise if it is a new foods, because they have a neophobia, that is a fear of new foods being introduced, that is very common to omnivores. So that is there in the kids. So you can use by serving with dip or sauce, that will alter the taste of the food. And model healthy eating behavior. And this is also very important. Children enjoy and increase daily vegetable intake when they are prepared as pureed and added to sauce. Be creative in preparing foods for them. And this is also very important. In one study in Acta Pediatrica, they found that children prefer plates with 6 to 7 colors, 6 to 7 different foods, and some empty space in between, and foods organized and figure designs. But I don't think it is possible in India. So, and what is more important is you need to use these dips and sauces when introducing new foods. Hide vegetables. What is healthy food, and that is to be hide in the what is the child preferable foods. Makes plate attractive. Well, we already seen that. And no coercive feeding. This is the tagline. And some other techniques are: start with puree, make it thicker, small lumps, and all. Put the food on the table, put that food closer to the plate, then put it on the plate and mix it with other foods. Mix it with other foods. These are the varieties of things which you can do by exposure the food to the child. And this is very, very important. The parental modeling is very important. Eat the food yourself. Talk about it positively. Entice the child. Put yummy expressions on your face so that the child comes to eat. They should pull the food from your hands and eat. They should eat. So always try to encourage or entice them to eat the food. Okay. So once we know 3 different types of feeding disorders, what are those 3 things? The common things: parental misperception. Second is infantile anorexia. Third one is highly selective children. So division of responsibility. This is in the treatment part. As already told you, the responsive feeding says that parents should decide what, where, and when, and child decides how much to eat. If there is a clear-cut demarcation, there is a clear-cut contract between the mother and child, there is no feeding issues will arise. So what to feed? Always remember, feed the child only which matches to their child's development level. The same food the rest of the family, that is called family pot feeding, we say. And safe and nutritious foods. Also think about energy dense feeding. If the child is not eating, you should also say energy dense feeding. So where to feed? We don't have time. Indians, we don't put the child on a high chair. I have seen some mothers, the feeding time, they put the child in the car and they just go around the city to feed the child. So that is the pathetic situation the parents are in, dear friends. Don't take this topic very, don't neglect this topic at all. So feed the children and solid foods in high chair. They must be able to sit upright and play with the food in front of them. And they should feel that this is my high chair, this is the feeding chair, this is the feeding place, this is the feeding ball. That association should develop. That's why way to feed is also very, very important. Definitely not in front of TV or gadgets. And when to feed, this is very, very important to understand. You should tell the mothers the child need to eat 3 to 4 hours gap should be there. Set meal time and snack time, which will help them to understand their hunger and satiety. 3 meals or one snack is usually enough. Child is taking give 2 or more snacks only when he is hungry, and with nothing but water in between. This is a very important thing. So what are the 8 golden principles? I think with these 8 principles, I'll stop my presentation. It will take another 5 minutes so that I'll complete my talk well in time. Remember, the most important thing is the mother's expressions, the environment in the family, how it should be. Always maintain the neutral attitude. Try not to show anger and frustration with the child eating. What will happen? We see in the cat experiment of Pavlov. So do not overeat or overreact also when your child. I think I've seen some families when the child eats one spoonful of food, everybody will start clapping, celebrating and putting in on the shoulders, and they roam, they celebrate that. So don't do those things. And always maintain a neutral and pleasant attitude somewhere close to this. Can we do that? And most important thing, teach the child to set limits. Avoid distractions at mealtime. No TV and no video. I think most parents, they will ask, "What's wrong, doctor? My child eats only if I give in front, if I'm showing TV or gadgets, then only will eat." But what you are teaching the child is there is nothing wrong. You are shoveling the food inside, but there is nothing wrong. But the child is not learning that when he's hungry, he should eat. When he's full, he should stop eating. If that thing is missing in that, and simply it's like a grazing, the child just eats the food, that's all, just gulp down the food. He doesn't know what is the taste of the food, what he's eating. He don't respect the food that way. And always feed to encourage appetite. Set meal and snack time, nothing but water in between, and no grazing all day. I think we see children eating here, they just go there here and there and they eat some or other food, most of the things junk food only. Okay. And limit how long meals last. This is also very, very important to understand, because most parents, they take almost 1 hour to 2 hours. Some people, they take 2 hours also just to feed a small bowl of food. That's what the parent says. But you should tell them that it should not be more than 20 to 30 minutes, because the child's attention span on any activity is not more than 20 minutes. So child will get frustrated if you force feed him for more than 1 hour. He will get frustrated, and the moment he sees the ball in your hand, he will run away. So that should not happen. It should not be a jailer-prisoner relationship. Okay. And if the child is disruptive, put him on timeout. Timeout itself is a big topic. When there is a time, we'll discuss about the timeout. Very important, which Indians won't follow. Remember that your child will have a chance to eat again in few hours. He won't starve. This important point you should tell. Children will, they will survive without food even for 2 weeks, full 2 weeks on liquids and milk. So you tell them, emphasize them, that reinforce them that they won't starve to death. And age appropriate texture and food, this we already discussed. Give them only age appropriate foods. Don't give your child foods that she or might choke on. And you can encourage them to self feed. This we'll see. And introduce new foods regularly. This is very, very important. All the foods, whatever the parents eating, that should be eaten by the children also. And remember, most parents, what they say is, when they give once or twice, if the child is not showing interest, they think that the child is rejecting that food. Remember this important fact: at least 10 to 15 taste exposures are needed before you stop offering the food. So at least 10 to 15 taste exposures are required before you say that the child is not interested in eating this food. So let your child see what you are eating, new foods, and talk in positive ways about new foods, entice them. And remember this: age appropriate mess. Allow your child to play with the food. Don't wipe his mouth after every bite. I think they will allow the child to sit, but mother will sit on the right side of the child with a napkin in hand, and the moment something comes, sticks here, immediately she tries to wipe off. Don't be so paranoid about that. If you are worried about the food spilling down, put a large paper or large cloth beside. You can easily pick it up and clean it up. Let the child explore the food on his own and encourage self-feeding. This is very, very important. Child should learn this important skill. I think even in our tradition, even the mothers will feed even the children now. Even my mother feeds even now when I go to home. So that's what happens. Okay, so that is the cultural aspect. But children are taught to how to eat this important skill of their survival. And with this, I've come to conclusion. The best way to help your child develop healthy eating habits is what? Eat well yourself and know your feeding style and feeding practices. So correct it to responsive feeding and starting, because as soon as your child is born. I would like to take 1 minute here. So all the feeding options with the child, it is programmed in utero itself. As Jason Unni sir was telling, there is something called flavor bridge. What mother eats during in utero, that means while she is pregnant, and also what mother eats during the lactation period, the first 6 months, has a tremendous impact on the child. Actually, breastfeeding is very important in one more aspect, because in every feed, the child will get the flavor of what mother has eaten. So every time mother is programming by eating a healthy food herself. So there is an experiment, interesting experiment I would like to quote here. So the mothers who are lactating, they were given a carrot juice daily, 1 glass of carrot juice to one group of mothers, and they didn't give this carrot juice to another group of mothers. And what they found interestingly is the children during that weaning time, the mothers who are fed with carrot juice, their children were eager to drink those carrot juice very eagerly, which is not liked by most of us also, right? The carrot juice. So that is the experiment that mother can program. Even while lactating, mother can program the child feeding practices. And one more interesting study, what they found is the children who were, the mother who ate green leafy vegetables and fruits more during the lactation period, the children also are more akin to, they recognize that flavor during the breastfeeding. So while they are eating also, they are eager to eat that foods. So mother is really programming the child what to eat. Remember and imagine, if the mother eats junk food while in utero and lactating mother, when she is lactating, what you can expect the child to prepare more foods. Okay, and the results of responsive feeding, it takes time. Definitely you should tell at least 2 to 3 months it will be take. So ask the parents to be patient. Dear friends, let's empower mothers in this crucial area of where it can have a negative impact on the weight, height, and also the mental developmental indexes. Don't take picky eating so lightly, and empower mothers. We pediatricians, the custodians of the future children, future generation, we have a bigger role and responsibility in aiding that improvement. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Pavan, for your detailed elaboration about the various prescriptions for fuss eaters. You covered the organic behavior, that is psychosomatic clinical traits, that is the body as well as soma and mind. And also you covered the feeding disorders about the infantile anorexia nervosa as well as bulimia nervosa. And you cover the types of feeding styles and parenting styles, how the parenting styles show impact on the feeding style and further child development and neurodevelopment. And also the common practices, you covered how to feed the child, and passive feeding, possessive feeding, indulging feeding, and controlling feeding. Really, in reality, most of the mothers are following this controlling as well as indulging. I think they are possessive and passive, like a jailer and prisoner relationship, as you said. It is true in a practical way. And also, you cover the best feeding practices and prescribed to the fuss eaters. You really conveyed the message to the pediatricians as well as the parents, and it is very informative. As well as lastly, you covered about the sensory development, how it shows impact during the antenatal period or prenatal period. The sensory development will take place actually. At the same time, during the lactating time, how the baby smell, that again the same smell, same flavor the child also will likes in future. It is really true in a practical way. how the sensory development will take place on the feeding practices. Thank you very much, Dr. Pavan, for your excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I would like to introduce the fourth speaker of the today's webinar. That is Dr. Meena Chintapalli, and she is a developmental and behavioral pediatrician. And her topic is the brain foods we are, what we eat. And she is going to cover about the attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and autism spectrum disorders, ASD, as well as the NEURO connections. And she is a CEO of the SAI, Sai Institute of Educare, and she's a founder for Society for Assistant International, and she is a founder and past CEO of San Antonio A through Z Pediatrics, and she's a master trainer on neuroscience, that is from 0 to 3 years growth and development. And she's the ex-vice chairman, Department of Pediatrics, South Texas Methodist Hospital, and a clinical faculty of COCAN as well as COSH of American Academy of Pediatrics. I welcome Dr. Meena Chintapalli from Texas. She's on online. Over to Dr. Meena, madam.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm feeling very humbled to be a part of this. Thank you, IAP. Thank you, Jagadish, for giving me this opportunity with very esteemed scholars like you all. It is a privilege for me. I took a broader topic because I'm more into neuroplasticity, how we are hardwired early on into living healthy lifestyles, and this happens in the 0 to 5 years. So I went into the details of how the foods determine how the synaptic proliferation occurs and how we can modify, but then I cannot go into the details of the behaviors. The goal is here is to understand that every pediatrician is empowered to create a better society, because they are the ones who can offer the education from the first 1,000 days and up to first 5 years, 100% of the structural and the lifetime functional capacity of the brain that controls the rest of the systems happens, and food has a major role for the neuroplasticity and overall growth. What is the holistic health we are talking about? Health is physical, intellectual, psychosocial, emotional, and spiritual wellness. If we neglect any one of these, we are not assuring health, and food has a major role in connecting to assure this health, because physical health is related to the food also. How to assure and what happens, pathogenesis, I'm going to talk about it. When we think about the food, our senses are intricately connected with the central nervous system is intricately connected with the autonomic nervous system and the stomach. When we see the food, we think about the food. When we smell the food, our stomach already growls, produces certain juices like insulin that is there until the absorption is completed. And either we are happy or we are averse or repulsed with the food. And this doesn't include the physiological anorexia state when the child is growing only 2 inches per year, 5 pounds per, gaining 5 pounds per year, they eat like a little bird. That's a different thing. But this food and the mood is related, migraine headaches, depression, ADHD, and there's been more studies, and I put them in the references. And the synaptic proliferation, the food doesn't only cause the anthropometrics, but it is also important for the synaptic proliferation, immunity, which is local gut immunity, as well as the systemic immunity, preventing viral and bacterial infections, and that comes from food. And energy and metabolism that shapes our lifestyles and choices is also related to the food. And brain produced neurotrophic factors are from the food that help in the cognitive skills of every individual, cell integrity, synaptic proliferation, and dendritic connections. And this is a lifetime thing that happens before the 5th birthday. If we do things right with the food and the environment and the positive parenting skills, which is a multifactorial input, I think we will raise very healthy individuals that need less antibiotics and less behavioral disorders. Food not only determines the neuroplasticity and the brain, but it is also important for the blood vessels, the coagulation, anticoagulant effects, preventing strokes, cardiovascular systems, kidneys, pulmonary, bronchial, hematology, and preventing cancer. And particularly the highest that we can talk about is obesity, acanthosis nigricans, which is 100% pre-diabetic type 2 diabetes mellitus. So going forth, just a little visual picture of how diet and exercise go together. If diet and exercise in moderation, it releases the brain derived neurotrophic factor and insulin dependent growth factor that is going to cause the neuroplasticity, synaptic proliferation, and cognitive learning, as well as memory. And if it is done too much of exercise, too much of caloric intake, that overfills the cells and that cannot buffer the ions. And this produces the reactive oxygen species that do not release these BDNF and IGF-1 that cannot do the neuroplasticity, and there will be cognitive deficiencies. Is it why that we see with the obesity, learning disorders, as well as mental disorders? And diet and exercise also release this SIRT1 deacetylation enzyme, which converts active chromatin to inactive chromatin, which is indirectly related to the epigenetic regulation. So bad genes do not get expressed and good genes do get expressed. And food is related to with the omegas, fatty acids, decoxyhexanoic acid and arachidonic acid at the mitochondrial level, at the synaptic formation level. They come from food when the food is taken, and from the liver and the muscle, the insulin-like growth factor is released, as well as from the adipose tissues, the leptin is released, and they all go into the system to convert in the system BDNF that promotes the synaptic proliferation and dendritic proliferation. So the food, the gut, and the brain is very much related together. So the type of food choices we make for a healthy lifestyle is determined by 3 years of age, and Dr. Josine, Pawan, and Dr. Sri Krishna have already dealt with that. Homemade foods are very essential, where you don't get the same in the packaged foods, because there is a variety that is cheap, that is easily available even for the villagers that who can consume these foods. And it is the duty of by the pediatricians to teach the families how to make these homemade foods with a healthy brain foods, as well as for the systemic immunity. So to prevent even Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, not only in the infancy that we need to eat the right kind of foods, but we need them for the later geriatric age group also. And I will go into, and when we talk about this cognitive functioning, what are we talking about? We are talking about being able to have a sensory input, pay attention, focus, body regulation, perceiving the information, breaking into the memory, active working memory, and declarative memory, explicit memory, reasoning, visual, auditory, and temporal spatial reasoning, organizational skills, and problem solving, decision making, language planning, multitasking, flexibility from one, switching from one to the other, this cognitive flexibility. Everything is influenced by the foods that we consume. An example is in USA and Germany, fish is not much eaten, and there is a higher incidence of cancer and lower IQ and learning disabilities, whereas fish is much consumed in Japan and in the Mediterranean areas, as well as in Thailand, Taiwan, and they have a better IQ, better IQ. And there have been studies by Dr. Gale, references are given at the end. There is a higher IQ among children at 4 years of age when they ate foods that were prepared at home, and there were very well balanced brain foods as well as for the systems. And if this IQ test with the Bailey scales is done at 9 to 10 months, it showed no difference, but by 4 years, it certainly showed difference. So what are these brain boosters? We talk about leptins, omegas, polycomplex carbohydrates, xanthines, zeaxanthines, mesoxanthines, antioxidants, micronutrients, probiotics, minerals, monounsaturated fatty acid, long-chain polyunsaturated fatty acids, short-chain fatty acids, every minerals like already elaborated, choline, micronutrients and minerals, polyphenols are important. For the general health, all these food groups that come under the brain boosters also have antioxidant, anxiolytic, immune boosting capacity. And they calm the gastrointestinal system, anti-flatulent, anti-arthritis, and a bronchodilator effect, antidepressant, and CNS calming effect, anticoagulant effect, anti-cancer effect. And they work through the pulmonary system as well as CVS, blood vessels, kidney, and immune system. And what are these foods? Polycomplex carbohydrates, grains, we should really think more than plain rice, like the quinoa, barley, rye, millets, brown rice, bulgur, steel-cut oats. Vegetables, I'm not going to go through each and one of them, all that are colored, and the top of them are the carrots, broccoli, zucchini, beets, sweet potatoes, pumpkin, onions, cilantro. These are very important, mint leaves. Every one of them is important for the brain chemicals as well as functioning of the systems. Fruits, particularly not always apples and bananas, although they have some positive effects. Mostly colored fruits that are easily available even in India. These are pomegranates, kiwi, papaya, berries, raspberries and blueberries may be a little bit high expensive, but a lot of berries are available in India too. Some bananas and oranges, tangerines, mangoes, star fruits, avocados have a major role, plums, peaches, and nectarines. Legumes, vegetarian protein, as well as there's some glycemic index, is the black beans, red kidney beans, tur dal, chena, moong, urad dal, and all the fruits that are available, easily available. Nuts like pumpkin seeds, pecans, walnuts, sunflower seeds, flax seeds and chia seeds and cashew nuts. They have plenty of nourishment for the brain. Animal proteins, eggs, fish, poultry, goat meat, and turkey. Try to avoid beef and ham that has a high carbon that can cause cancer. Oils, safflower oil, sunflower oil are inexpensive in India. Avocado oil and olive oil is a little bit beyond reach. And micronutrients, everything that we make in Indian food for the Annamaya Kosam, Pranamaya Kosam, Manamaya Kosam, Nanamaya Kosam, Anandamaya Kosam, we are happy. We want to be happy people. It is the little spices like black peppers, turmeric, garlic, ginger, all these come under, and all the other fruits and vegetables in a plate, which is now about 50%, half the plate has all those micronutrients. Although brain is 2% of the body weight, it has 60%, it controls all the systems, and most weight of the brain, 60%, is fat, out of which omega-3 is DHA, which is 30%, phospholipid ARA, omega-6 is about 20%. What do these do? They maintain the neuron cell membrane integrity, prevent oxygen-induced toxic damage. They promote the synaptic transmission for conduction and rapid transmitter. The broader the band, faster is the transmission. Cognitive associations, cognitive learning, memory, and integrity and stability of the cell. Omega-3 also activates the BDNF and IGF-1 because of its effect through the gut. and it promotes the neurotransmitters, neuroplasticity again, receptor enzyme activity, anti-inflammatory activity. It leads to cognitive learning and memory because of all these other things. And I will briefly mention dietary deficiency of omega-3s have been noticed to be associated with learning disabilities, dyslexia, ADHD, and even autism spectrum disorders, bipolar depression, and anxiety and depression. DHA is not manufactured, but it can now, recent studies show these free fatty acids can be generated by the colonic bacteria or commensals. Excessive calorie intake, again, I talked about it, I'm not going to repeat. The ROS can cause suppression of cognitive learning and memory because the cells are overloaded with the ROS radicals and they do not create the BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor and the insulin-like growth factor. High caloric intake in junk foods do not cause cognitive affiliations and associations. So when we look at the picture, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis connects with the vagus nervous system, and vagus and the GI produces all these other hormones, including ghrelin, leptin, GLP-1, and it works on the limbic system, which is the HPA axis, hippocampus, amygdala, and into the cerebral cortex. So the neocortex needs all of these nutrients for the cognitive learning. Leptin is released from adipose tissues, and it is rich in hippocampus and hypothalamus, and leading to cognition and memory. IGF-1 is a food affiliated released from exercise and metabolism, and is produced by liver in the skeletal muscles. IGF-1 works on the hypothalamus. It regulates the appetite, and it connects to the gut through the vagus nerve system, integrates the visceral function through the limbic system, working through the HPA axis. And vagal nerve stimulation has a major role now in treating depression, seizures, as well as in other mental disorders. So vagus nerve has a major role connecting the peripheral autonomic nervous system with the central nervous system. Gut microbes have a major role in this autonomic nervous system function, as well as for the neuroplasticity. The gut is filled with this innervation, nerve innervation. Microbiomes has a major role now, and the vagus nerve differentiates pathogenic and non-pathogenic bacteria or the microbiomes, commensals, and with the commensal action, it mediates signals to anxiogenic or anxiolytic pathways through HPA axis. So in depression and in anxiety, vagal nerve stimulation has reversed or has helped. And when we do pranayama, breathing, it is the same vagal nerve stimulation mechanisms that help, and it works through the GABAergic activities. The second factor microbiomes work is they create the short polyunsaturated fatty acids, and it control the immune regulation from the colonic bacteria from the fiber. This also seems to help alter the gene expression, influences the immune system, interacts with the neurons, stimulating the autonomic nervous system. And the third way these biomes work is on the neurotransmitters and in the processing in the brain. And they through the influence of synthesizing through the commensal bacteria, the precursors for serotonin, dopamine, GABA, acetylcholine, and histamine. At autism spectrum disorders, by giving the probiotics, these peptides that were being putrefied and releasing the ammonia and inflammatory phenols and sulfides, they were reversed, and there has been an improvement by using the probiotics. And helps in the leaky gut system, which the leaky gut system is related with the neuroinflammation. So what are the microbiomes doing, and what is the major role with the gut with these microbiomes, which I regularly have been giving them to the patients from 6 months and above, maybe twice or thrice a week, the probiotics. They influence the health. The appetite regulation happens, digestion and energy utilization, absorption of nutrients, influences drug metabolism, controls the immune regulation, immune function, protects against the pathogens, viruses, bacteria, and other toxic agents. Neuroplasticity and neurotransmitters are also helped because of the precursors, or it works with the precursors. And if there is a dysbiosis, there have been neurological disorders, irritable bowel syndrome, cancer, and dysmetabolic syndromes and obesity. And leptin is, and ghrelin or through the metabolism, diet, and exercise. Leptin is found in the hypothalamus, hippocampus, and in the frontal cortex. It elevates BDNF and it helps, decreases the appetite or overeating, and it is secreted by the adipose tissue with exercise. Ghrelin is like a growth hormone, like a factor secretagogue, and it is endogenous ligand of growth hormone, and it works through the dendritic proliferation in the hippocampus and helps in spatial learning. GLP-1 is from the intestinal cells. It stimulates insulin production, and that indirectly helps the metabolism, energy regulation through the metabolic effects. It increases the muscle glucose uptake and suppresses appetite. GLP-1 receptors are high in CNS neurons, and it improves in associative learning and spatial memory. Insulin is very critical for any metabolic products to be consumed in the systemic metabolism. Anticipation of a meal secretes insulin till absorption is completed. Insulin crosses the blood-brain barrier and works on the hippocampus in the synaptic proliferation, synaptic activity, and dendritic proliferation. Energy from food is transferred because of insulin to neurons through circulation. Management of energy on neurons influences neuroplasticity. Insulin is an important factor for this neuroplasticity and metabolic regulation. Dysmetabolic syndromes that have dysregulation of this insulin and IGF-1 affect learning and cognitive abilities. So this is the same picture I've already shown. BDNF works through in synchrony with IGF-1, and these are secreted by the liver. And I'm skipping this because it's a repetition. This is a visual picture of everything that I talked about already. So brain is a hot zone with a heavy oxygen and metabolic load, free fatty acids, and plasma membrane vulnerability to toxificates because of the free oxygen radicals of the ROS. And this cell degeneration, trauma, and everything is prevented by these polyphenols, antioxidants, tannins in the blueberries, the colored fruits and everything, catecholin, phytoestrogens, anthocyanins, blueberries, neuroplasticity, and it protects the oxidative stress on the neuron, any cell damage at a membrane level. Curcumin or the good old turmeric has multiple effects on this and on all the systems. Diet and epigenetics, I already addressed about SIR2. Epigenetics now gene does not need to be expressed if the environment, the positive parenting skills, nurture and love, along with the good nutrition, that can be prevented. Bad genes do not need to be expressed. I took the pyramid, but it is a food plate now. Half the food plate is the fruits and vegetables, whereas the other half is protein and carbohydrates and the fatty acids. So what are these micronutrients? And each one of them, like vitamin D and everything, I don't know if I have time to go through. Homocysteine metabolism is, which is a precursor for dopamine and serotonin, is vitamin B12, vitamin B6, folates, riboflavin, choline, and niacin. Energy and metabolism, multiple vitamins, lipoic acid, coenzyme Q10. Neuron growth factors and development survival, vitamin D, as Dr. Josine has explained. Neurotransmitter binding with vitamin B6, neurotransmitter synthesis, all vitamins B, C, E, and K. Nerve impulse propagation, folate, vitamin B12, and membrane stability and integrity is maintained by these. Membrane integrity is again by DHA, vitamin C, E, and flavonoids. Blood supplies by flavonoids. So everything is important for circulation, preventing stroke, holistic health. And since it has already been addressed, I'm not going to go into the folic acid, zinc, iodine, iron deficiency that the nadir with an anemia that happens by the 6th to the 8th week of a child's life. Although the fetus is very parasitic on the maternal iron consumption, leads to learning disabilities, anemia, and I completely concur that we should give it in an acid medium the iron that can prevent all these problems and in the primary network formation. And a word about the few food diets. One of the novel therapies that have recently been coming, and then there are opening studies and the closing studies, that elimination diet trials. I've used this a lot because I read Dr. Doris Rapp's allergy, food allergies and hyperactivity. So I tried elimination diet trials and I could take the dosage of the psychostimulants. But this has a major role in controlling the allergic manifestations on the skin as well as in the behaviors. So the few food, it is elimination diet trials that start with 1 and goes up to the 4. And there are references that I have given. And I will go to the, it works through the GABAergic system, it works through the norepinephrine, dopamine systems, and microbiome seem to be determining these GABAergic oriented dopamine, norepinephrine secretions. So one of the studies is that they took 57 children with ADHD, 27 children were on medicines and few food diets, and 15 were not on medicines at all with few food diets. And 29 out of these 57 children had ODD. So during the FFD trials, 21 out of the 27 children who were taking medicine and FFD, they dropped the medicine and they stayed with FFD. 34 out of these 57 children improved with their ADHD symptoms in 60, that brings it about 60%. 20 out of the 29, which is almost about 68%, were improved with their oppositional defiant disorder. 26 out of the 34 were the ADHD were reintroduced to the foods, and they maintained their positive improvement of ADHD after reintroduction among the 40% of the children. So in the, what is about the leaky gut and the autism spectrum disorders? Food structure is very important. The digestive system is important. That seems to be compromised because of the crypt cell proliferation, thickening of the basolateral membranes of the gut of the children with autism spectrum disorders, which leads to increased intestinal permeability. This is proved by having local cell infiltration and immune complexes with IgG as well as the complement. Then that leads to many factors. They have noticed leukotrienes 4, 2, and interferon gamma that are elevated in the intestinal duodenal mucosa and IL-4 in colonic mucosa, and low amount of regulatory lymphocyte populations that also control the cancer was found in autism spectrum disorders. Ileal nodular hyperplasia, so the lymphatics were working with this inflammation in autism spectrum disorder. So this is called as a leaky gut. And in the immune-mediated epithelial damage to the gut lining is via the serum IgG and complement action, which is an autoimmune disorder. So when the blood mononuclear cells were tested, they had high levels of beta-1 lactoglobulin, alpha-1 lactoglobulin, gliadin in autism spectrum disorders that reversed when the microbiomes were given and elimination diet trials were used, which is gluten-free and casein-free. So what are the healthy functions of the gut? Nutrients are absorbed. I'm not going to go into that. Even the fiber in the the amino acids, everything is manufactured there. That is for the body growth and the systems to work in balance or in homeostasis. But what happens in the leaky gut syndrome is that these the putrefying bacteria are increased because there are undigested peptides, and there is a release of ammonia, phenols, and sulfides, which are picked up in the urine. And these were reversed when they gave the when the studies showed that they were on probiotics and commensals were increased. Undigested protein is degraded, and these are very toxic to the systems. And in the lack of commensals in the colon also prevented the release of the DHA or the free fatty acids that are very important for the well-being of the nervous system. So gluten-free, casein-free diets seem to have caused behavior improvement because it controls the leaky gut syndrome, and significant changes are seen in the behaviors and reversal of some of the sensory processing issues in autism spectrum disorders, but by 2 to 4 years of age. It has to be lengthy, and besides the positive behavior modification with the positive parenting skills. Low levels of certain amino acids are seen, which are GABA-activated dopamine, norepinephrine in ASD, and GABA control for apoptosis or pruning of the brain is seen in autism spectrum disorders. There are antibodies against several microbial products that were picked up in the bloodstream because that is because of the leaky gut syndrome. Elevated levels of antibodies against dietary proteins, which is gliadin, alpha-1, alpha-globulin, alpha-lactoglobulin, which is also from the breast milk, beta-1 lactoglobulin, O-albumin, and gliadin, and IgA, IgG, IgM are seen, not the IgE reagenic antibodies. So this seems to be an immunological property between the leaky gut, autism spectrum disorders, ADHD. It is, the literature says that in autism that 13 to 15% have ADHD symptoms, and autism spectrum symptoms are seen in ADHD children. So I don't want to repeat everything that I've already discussed. So what can we do to connect the gut with a holistic healthy living? In the first 6 months, we have to give breastfeeding. We have to make sure the mother is not depressed, is able to offer the breastfeeding for myelin growth that is important for the rapid transmission of the impulses. And from 6 months onwards, we start weaning. Mother can prepare foods at home with all these greens that strain, cook them, strain them, add organic brown rice cereal or rice cereal, and not make it very sweet, but use the vegetables. And the hardwiring for good food and the tasting happens within 7 to 10 days. And babies do spit the food early on when there is introduction because of the tongue thrust reflex, as well as they do develop some taste buds, but they accept the taste after 7 days of persistence. And try to give water with the spoons initially. Water is an excellent nutrient which we have neglected, and it does bother me that a lot of people do give juices and milk with the major meals that suppresses appetite for good food. And by 12 months, the kids are growing only 2 inches per year and gain 5 pounds per year. They go through physiological anorexia, the structure, consistency, 20 minutes, as Pawan has said, that is important, with no praise, no remorse, no conditioning, but giving 2 food choices and serving the food that they chose. And if they don't eat, don't make eye contact, don't do anything. This behavior modification is very important, but not to substitute the food. Then again, within the next half an hour or so, because our heart is melting, because the poor baby did not eat. They eat when they are hungry, they sleep when they sleep, when they have to go to the bathroom, they go. The mouth and anus are controlled totally by the child, not by the parents. And it is better that the parents learn how to create a structure, eat with the children, set an example. Pawan has dealt with that already, and have, they run to the, when they say it is lunchtime, and a toddler will run to the same seat that they have been given. And at the same time, during the latency phase, they eat and they try more foods. But unless the child is exposed in a proper introduction of food, starting with the blanks, and then with the fruits and vegetables, then with the proteins, and then with the sweet fruits, the child is going to be sweet-toothed later on. They're hardwired for sweet foods. And they make healthy choices of drinking water instead of demanding juices and everything. And the milk consumption has to be cut down. What would I do with to prevent autism and everything? I have started introducing quinoa and gluten-free foods early, and then introduce gluten between 6 to 9 months in breastfed babies, but not in bottle-fed babies, because they can have severe allergic reactions. And in my book, I did talk about eosinophilic infiltration, starting from pharynx to the colon to the anus, in one child where she bled at 6 weeks of age because of the ingredients that went through the mother's milk, which were heavy glutens as well as casein related products. That resolved, and reintroduction can be done after the 3rd birthday. So I do quinoa, I do brown rice, I do lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, no packaged foods, to prevent the toxic effect of the preservatives and the food coloring agents on the brain and on the immune system. And I've introduced turmeric, little amounts, by caution with all these ingredients like pepper, turmeric, cloves, cardamoms, and all these ingredients. They can increase the coagulability. So it has to be in a very small proportions, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, to effort that curcumin effect for the anti-inflammatory properties, as well as antibacterial, antiviral properties. And most of the foods that I've enumerated are antidepressants also. So we can control the behavior through the foods. And if we create that habit in the first 3 years of life, to create the fruits and vegetables with the greens and the coloring foods, half the plate, and give the polycomplex carbohydrates that do not have the all or none phenomenon of rapid utilization and rebound hunger, we can create a very healthy child or a healthy infant. And work at the neuroplasticity, layering of the brain in a proper way. And there was a question why we should not expose them to electronics. Bayesian principles show when there is a neuroplasticity, rapid development, dynamic development of the synaptic proliferation is happening, they need a cue and a cause. They need to know why they are seeing, what they are hearing, and they need to have an effect from that. This is an interrelational teaching that can only happen from an adult to the infant. It doesn't happen through the electronics because they don't know the cue is the cause. In autism, now we are seeing high brain volumes of nerve networks, synapses, that multiply with stunted axons. Axonal growth happens when there is a cue and a cause, and a declarative memory when they have hands on. This doesn't happen for anything with the TV viewing. And whenever I stopped the electronics, autism improved, autism symptoms improved, sensory processing improved. So we have to stop electronics until 3 years of age or at least 30 months. We use discrete engaging electronics 20 minutes a day to teach cognitive associations with the word picture object and number picture object relationships, but hands-on activities are recommended for younger children. So please advise the parents not to show electronics. They can interact, they can set an example. They should not force feed, they should encourage eating with the hands, so that the food sensitivities are a major issue in autism spectrum disorders that can be prevented. Autism sensitivity, sensory processing disorders can be prevented if we follow a certain curriculum of using a multisensory integration in which electronics have no role. I had a kid with the 16q deletion syndrome who wasn't talking, and with all the therapies and excellent health insurance at 6.5 years of age. And she was using iPad for everything in almost all day. And the parents and the therapists left her because she was a happier kid without flapping. And once I really educated the mother on the neuroplasticity and the role of the foods, and placed it on the gluten-free, casein-free foods, and gradually reintroduced after a year, she has gone to the regular school by 9 years of age and mainstreamed with the pull-out programs for special education needs. And she started talking, and she stopped being echoing. So we can accomplish. I put my money on the neuroplasticity 0 to 5 years, although the brain is connecting until 18 years. So this is my conclusion. We need to know the developmental stages and rapid transitions. We need to educate the parents on how to use, when to use, and the role of the food as a major contributing factor for holistic health. Thank you, Jagadish. Thank you, IAP, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, madam.
I don't know how much time I took.
Because, thank you very much, Dr. Meenakshi ma'am. You dealt about the role of microbiomes, various disorders and health, role of gut hormones and peptides, role of antioxidants, luteins, zeaxanthins, mesoxanthins, etc., and the diet and epigenetics, and the leaky gut theory in autism spectrum disorder. And you explained about the link between the gut and the behavior, which is really true. It happens. What you eat, it dictates your personality, as earlier saying. And impact of electronic gadgets on sensory development. Lastly, you covered. It is really useful. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, myself, I'm Dr. Jagadish, Senior Consultant, Newborn and Pediatric Early Interventionist in Developmental Disabilities, the Department of Pediatrics, Apollo Institute of Medical Science and Health Sciences, and a member of Neurodevelopmental Pediatrics Group, and Indian Academy of Pediatrics, and Indian Academy of Cerebral Palsy. I would like to talk about the vaccines will not cause autism, as well as gluten-free, casein-free diet, that is GF-CF diet. There's a lot of controversy about this GF-CF diet globally. So let's talk about evidence-based intervention program. This is Apollo Hospital mission statement. And this my session I am dedicating to my professor, Dr. P. Sudarshan Reddy Garu, who is the ex-head of the Department of Pediatrics, Apollo Institute of Medical Science and Health Sciences. And this is the Department of Pediatrics, the team at Apollo. Okay. This is about vaccines will not cause autism. Okay. Earlier, there was a theory that MMR vaccine will cause the autism. So what goes into vaccine really? Apart from the antigens, there are so many ingredients you can observe in all vaccines, like adjuvants, which added to enhance the immunity system, and antibiotics to prevent the contamination during the manufacturing process of the various vaccines. And also vaccines do consisting of preservatives as well as stabilizers. So if you look at the vaccine ingredient, the first one is thimerosal, that is ethyl mercury. The parents can get a doubt that too much of vaccination may cause or do cause the autism or any other neurodevelopmental disorder. So no, because it is safe. The type of mercury found in thimerosal, ethyl mercury, which differs from the methyl mercury. So which is commonly found in the fish, and also ethyl mercury is broken down and excreted from our body much more quickly than methyl mercury. This is what we should know. So there is no scientific study has found a link between ethyl mercury and autism or any other harmful effects. The second one is formaldehyde. It is safe. Formaldehyde is always present in the human body as a part of our natural metabolic process. Everybody knows this. Fortunately, the amount of formaldehyde found in the vaccine is very small amount. In fact, the Food and Drug Administration reports there is a 50 to 70% times more formaldehyde present in an average newborn body. So a neonate body may consisting of 50 to 70 times formaldehyde than a single dose of vaccine. In brief, current science shows formaldehyde in vaccines to be harmless. So we can accept the vaccines. And comes to the aluminum, it is also safe. Aluminum is the third most commonly natural occurring element after oxygen and silicon in the environment. It is found in the plants, soil, air, and water. A breastfed infant will naturally ingest about 7 grams of aluminum in his diet throughout the first 6 months of life. So there won't be any kind of adverse effect or side effects. In contrast, the standard vaccines administered over the first 6 months of an infant's life contain an average, just that is 4.4 milligrams of aluminum. So aluminum has been used safely for over 6 decades in the vaccines. Then comes to the antibiotics. In fact, no allergic reaction to a vaccine ever been traced back to antibiotics. So the overall odds a child will suffer from severe allergic reaction from measles, mumps, rubella, or hepatitis B vaccine from any ingredient, that is hardly 1:1,100 times. Then gelatin. Gelatin also will be commonly found in vaccines. While gelatin is the single largest identifiable source of severe allergic reactions from vaccines, the incidence rate is still incredibly small. There is about 1 case of anaphylaxis reaction caused by gelatin in vaccines for every 2 million injections. 2 million injections. Then monosodium glutamate. This monosodium glutamate, decades of research have not found the element to be harmful. As a result, the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, and World Health Organization and the United Nations all declare this monosodium glutamate to be very safe. It has been used for decades and continue to be used in the foods as a flavors. So whatever the foods which we are taking, all the flavors will be consisting of monosodium glutamate only. So here you can come to a conclusion that vaccines does not have any side effects or significant adverse effect on the autism spectrum disorder. The widespread fear that vaccines increase risk of autism originated with 1997 by Andrew Wakefield, a British surgeon. So the article was published in the Lancet, prestigious medical journal, suggesting that measles, mumps, rubella vaccine was increasing autism in British children. So it was a study actually, but this study was unethical and not scientifically valid. So it is safer to get vaccines than not. While vaccines do not cause autism, they can sometimes have adverse effects like fever, like some kind of allergic reaction or painful at the site of injection. A person's chance of having a bad reaction to a vaccine is about 1 in 1 million. On the other hand, not getting a recommended vaccine puts you and around you at risk of very dangerous diseases that the various contaminated diseases or killer diseases. So several studies have been performed to disapprove the notion that MMR causes autism. So there are 2 kinds of studies conducted. One is in 1999, Brent Taylor and co-workers examined the relationship between the MMR vaccine and development of autism under well-controlled study. So the Taylor examined the records of 498 children with autism or autism-like disorder. Okay. So one of the best studies was performed by Madsen and colleagues in Denmark in the year 1991 as well as repeated in 1998, reported in the New England Journal of Medicine. So many studies and meta-analysis have proved that findings that MMR vaccine does not cause autism. So there was a book by a pediatrician has been written, he himself is a parent, that vaccines did not cause Rachel's autism. That is by Arthur L. Kaplan, My Journey as a Vaccine Scientist and Pediatrician and Autism Dad. This is the best book. If you want, you can go through this, by Peter Hottage, MD, PhD. Vaccines did not cause autism. And also there is another study, that Research in Autism Spectrum Disorder, volume 79 in 2020, very latest, that childhood vaccination as a protective factor for any developmental psychopathology. So we replicate our own and prior findings that the vaccination not increase autism spectrum disorder risk. Further, completing recommendations, vaccinations may offer the protection against the risk of the diseases as well as autism spectrum disorder. So vaccine myths totally debunked now. This is what finally you should know. And even more recent research provides evidence that autism develops in utero. In utero. See, most of the parents, they'll come and ask how my child got autism, how my child got attention deficit hyperactive disorder or some other neurodevelopmental disorder. So not after birth, before birth only everything happens. That is, autism develops in vitro, well before a baby is born or receives the vaccination. So this every parent and every professional should know. During the intrauterine life itself, everything happens. So this is MMR vaccine. This has been debunked, and vaccines do not cause autism. The debate is over. Okay, this is the final conclusion. It has been rejected by the medical community. It has been rejected by the scientific community, by the research community, even by the people as well as the parents, everyone. So this myth busted by the science. Now, the next talk will be the gluten-free, casein-free diet, that is GFCF diet. Most of the therapists, most of the pediatricians, most of the physicians nowadays are clinicians or dietitians are recommending this gluten-free, casein-free diet for the children with not only autism, some other kind of sensory processing disorders or sensory processing issues. Can a gluten casein-free diet help with autism? This is a controversial debate. Okay. So what is gluten and casein-free diet? The background is the gluten, which is a protein found in wheat, rye, and barley, and casein is a protein again found in dairy products. But most of the children nowadays are taking these products. In our day-to-day meal, you might be observing, like wheat or even the dairy products or milk, etc. Based on, there is a hypothesis that gluten and casein break down into opioid-like peptides. So diffuse across an abnormally permeable gastrointestinal lining. That is called leaky gut theory. Just now only Dr. Meenakshi ma'am explained. Excess opiate activity in central nervous system results in symptoms of autism. This is what is hypothesis which everybody should know about the gluten and casein-free diet. Okay. And gluten casein diet conclusions are, there is a Cochrane review in 2009. What this review is stating that insufficient evidence to support this use of the gluten and casein-free diet. Further study needed with well as designed trials. So further research is required to establish authenticated information about this diet, which we should know. Further information needed regarding the potential risk. And clinical consideration as a physician or as a clinician, we have to know about the feasibility of implementing diet for a child with sensory disorder, whether the child can implement this diet or whether the parents can implement this diet. Second, the child's current eating habits. As a physician, we should take the information like what he is taking. Dr. Pavan clearly explained what he is taking, how he is eating, when he is eating, everything. So this information, this subjective data will give clear picture to the physician to prescribe or to recommend the GFCF diet. And added time and effort and expense also. And also the physician has to plan to ensure compliance in and out of the home. And also nutritional consideration, every physician has to take into consideration, like the child's weight gain, we have to monitor continuously when the child is on a gluten and casein-free diet. And also you have to maintain the adequate intake of the proteins, calcium, as well as vitamin D. And also we need to consult the multidisciplinary team of professional, that is nutritionist also as a member. And also physician should plan for evaluating response to intervention program. And also vitamins and supplementations are recommended to the child with autism spectrum disorder. like vitamin B6 and magnesium. Generally safe. These are generally safe. Which one? Vitamin B6 and magnesium. But toxicity may occur at elevated doses. So we have to be very cautious when we are recommending the vitamin B6 and magnesium. Nowadays, very commonly the parents are prescribing the Becocil syrup to the children. Very commonly the parents are, they themselves, they are taking calcimax syrups or macrolide syrups. You know, irrespective of consulting the physician as a pediatrician. So it is very harmful to the child. We have to consider this. That means we have to do investigation, the serum B6, the serum B complex as well as magnesium and vitamin D3, everything before prescription. And the tolerable upper limits in children is vitamin B6 30 to 80 mg per day and magnesium 65 to 350 mg per day. And comes to the omega-3 fatty acids, ma'am clearly explained about this. Omega-3 fatty acids are nothing but polyunsaturated fatty acids. And some studies show decreased levels of omega-3 in autism spectrum disorder children. That is why the physicians are recommending the omega-3 fatty acids to the children with sensory processing disorders. Though so many pharma companies are, they are selling their products, preferably on the name of brand like omega-3 fatty acids. And there are some side effects of this, that is gastrointestinal upset, which has to be considered. So what is gluten and free as well as casein-free diet for autism? This is nothing but simply we can call it as a GFCF diet. It is one of the several alternative treatments for the children with autism rather than the medication. Because the most of the children with autism will be having the comorbidity symptoms like gastrointestinal problem, like chronic constipation, as well as sometimes the sleep disorders, which also shows impact because of the diet which the child is taking. When following the strict elimination diet, all foods containing gluten found in wheat, barley, and rye, and also casein that is found in milk and dairy products are removed from the child's daily routine. There is a myth here. How can you remove the dairy products to the child when the child is growing? The child's bones and teeth are growing. It is very important. Am I right? Calcium is very important. Vitamin D3 is important, as well as wheat is important. Barley is important. Rye is important for a child because child health is very important rather than other things. We have to prioritize the child's health. The bones are growing. The muscles are growing. The brain is growing. At that time, if you arrest or prevent this or oppose this diet, so there are so many long-term adverse effects may happen. Okay, how does a gluten-free, casein-free diet for autism, how it works? So the benefit of GFCF diet is based on the theory that the children with autism may have an allergy or hypersensitivity reaction, that is sensitivity to foods containing gluten and casein. Children with autism, according to the theory, they process peptides and proteins in foods containing gluten and casein differently that the other people do. So hypothetically, this difference is processing may exacerbate autistic symptoms. So there is a chance of precipitation or aggravation of the autistic symptoms. It may be a hyperactivity behavior, it may be attention deficit, or it may be oppositional or defiant, or some kind of sensory issues, or some gastrointestinal or sleep disorders, whatever it may be. So this is how the gluten and casein diet will affect. So here, the step one is gluten and casein are broken down into opioid peptides at the intestinal. Then second step is opioid peptides enter blood through leaky gut 3, as already ma'am, she explained. And the step 3 is opioid peptides travel to the brain, which interfere with the brain development or neuronal plasticity, which affects the attention and concentration span of the child, and also learning capacities like, ability to learn, ability to read, ability to write, and also cognitive function or intellectual function of the child. So the potential risk factors for human health. So there are so many like health disorders, mental health disorders, celiac disease, sudden infant death syndrome. So many things may happen. So which we need to consider before prescribing the diet to the child. Some believe that the brain treats these proteins like false opiate-like chemicals. The reaction to these chemicals leads to a child to act in a certain way, abnormal way. That is why the child with sensory processing disorder, he will behave abnormally. The idea behind the use of the diet is to decrease the symptoms, to increase the social as well as cognitive behaviors and speech language communication developmental areas. So to increase the social and cognitive behaviors, we can recommend. So generally, which foods we have to give to our child? So most of the parents, they will ask, because nowadays there are so many stores in our community. So if you go to the mega stores, the mega store will be consisting of so many products. So please, you have to see on the label whether this product is mentioned on gluten-free and casein-free or not. Gluten is a mix of various proteins found in the seeds, several grains such as barley, rye, and wheat. A huge number of food contains gluten. A huge number of foods contain gluten. Gluten provides structure of binding to baked products. So while it is difficult to avoid gluten, so in our day-to-day life, in our day-to-day diet, it is very difficult for us to avoid the gluten. When someone on a gluten-free diet, most bread and grain products are forbidden. Therefore, it is important to make the child to receive ample fiber diet, which is very important. Ample fiber diet, vitamins and minerals, you have to substitute to the child who is on gluten and casein diet. And supplementation definitely help and make up for the lack of these nutrients as a substitution when foods containing gluten are eliminated. So it is a duty of the pediatrician or a clinician or a physician to take off or to concentrate on the supplementation when the child is on gluten and casein free diet. Which foods contain casein now? Casein is a protein found in dairy products, other foods containing dairy or lactose, many soya products and imitation dairy products all consisting of casein, which is very important to read the labels carefully. So every parent should read carefully the labels when the following strict casein-free diet in the market. And because the GFCF diet for autism restricts dairy products, you will need to make sure that child's diet has other good sources of calcium and vitamin D3. Nowadays, most of the problems are facing by the children and adults are because of lack of vitamin D. So we need to substitute the vitamin D, which is very important for the strong bones and as well as teeth. And GFCF diet is not easy to follow. It is a very strict protocol, should be under the monitoring of a pediatrician as well as a physician or a clinician and the nutritionist also. And generally, many beets and cereals your child may not get enough. So calcium you may miss because of the GFCF diet. The child may miss calcium, the child may miss the fiber, the child may miss vitamin E, vitamin D, and B complex also. Even the calories also the child may miss. So we have to focus on these things. And there are so many studies conducted about this GFCF diet. So gluten casein-free diet does not improve autism symptoms. Small, carefully controlled study finds gluten casein-free diets do not improve behavior and bowel symptoms in kids with autism, because most of the children do face the gastrointestinal or bowel problems or constipation problems. So larger studies needed here for this. So this has been published in the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders on September 15th, 2015 year. And there is another study by Shirley S. Wang on September 14th, 2015 on gluten-free diet has no benefits for the children with autism. Study finds are University Rochester researchers also restricted casein in the diet and found no effect on the behavioral symptoms. So this has been published in the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders. Okay. What can my child eat? This is a very important practical question by every parent. So many foods do not contain gluten or casein's diet, such as chicken, fish, meat, fruits, vegetables, potatoes, rice, infant rice cereals and pasta labeled gluten-free. So this you need to consider here. And milk substitutes also you can, that is almond milk, dairy-free potato milk, rice milk, soya milk you can substitute instead of milk. Okay. And yellow foods, there are certain categories of yellow foods, avoid unless labeled gluten-free in the market and avoid food. So allowed foods are beans, seeds, nuts, fresh eggs, fresh meats, fish, poultry, fruits and vegetables, most dairy products, teff and amaranth and buckwheat, corn, that is maize and millet and quinoa, rice, sorghum. All these allowed for the child with autism or any sensory processing disorder. And avoid food are barley, that is malt, and rye, as well as wheat and rye, and wheat and bulgur, and seitan, and durum flour, farina flour, graham flour, kamut, semolina, spelt, and kosas, and triticale. So these are the items you can avoid. So there is a list of sources of gluten to avoid, already which I said just now only. And probable improvements in skills and health. Here there is a controversy. Many therapists, many clinicians, many pediatricians, they say, they recommend also, and they observed many improvements in the child on GFCF diet. Like what are the behavioral improvements or skill improvement which they observed commonly are after implementing the diet, parents report improvements in the following areas. So the child may do better in cognition, that is intelligence, and improvement in the receptive language, that is communication, and improvement in expressive language, and also the child may get the better sleep who is having the sleep disorder, and reduction in the disruptive or oppositional defiant or attention deficit hyperactive behavior, and also less hyperactivity behavior, and better bowel movements and no constipation, reduction in the ear infections and other illnesses, and pain tolerance and normalizing, and of course eczema clearing also. So these are the improvements generally commonly parents reported the child who is on GFC of diet. So for a good practice prior to starting a diet, explore the reasons for considering starting this diet, and you have to see whether the child is having pica, that is substance abuse, or food intolerance, or the child is having any kind of hypersensitivity or allergies. And also serological celiac screening has to be done before prescription of this diet, and assess for and correct any nutritional deficiencies like iron as well as vitamin D. You need to assess this. And baseline monitoring of the child's behavior as well as gastrointestinal symptomology over a period of several weeks you need to observe. Minimum 4 to 6 weeks of observation is highly recommended before recommending the GFC of diet, behavior as well as gastrointestinal symptoms. And practical considerations like recipes, liaising with the school and nursery as well as ensuring diet is nutritionally adequate for optimum growth as well as well-being. And of course, baseline measures of behavior and well-being which the pediatrician should record, that is growth as well as nutrition intake, so that any changes once the diet has started can be demonstrated. So explore how reintroduction of the foods will be managed. This is also very important. So finally, please do ask the experts. The best approach is to work with your doctor. The doctor may be a pediatrician or a neurodevelopmental pediatrician or behavioral pediatrician or a general physician or family physician or clinician. A nutritional specialist also we have to consider here, like a registered dietitian, who help to design a meal plan which can be tailored for your child's meal plan. So this is very important, nutrition prescription. And some children with autism have definitely digestive problems like constipation, belly pain, as well as nausea and vomiting. Okay. Or remember, nutritional needs change over time. Your child dietitian will help you to make sure the foods what he or she eats are still meeting his or her needs. This is very important because once the child's age advances, the dietary requirement also will be changed. So we need to consider this thing here. So the bottom line is diet changes should always be decided up and closely monitored by the family physician. Additionally, parents choosing to use this treatment should weigh all costs and associated with the GFC of diet, that is money, time, ability to evaluate the effects, which may be side effects or adverse effects, health status of the child, social stigmatization against the uncertain benefits. And Indian Academy of Pediatrics has now published the evidence-based guidelines to the doctors as well as for families to manage the neurodevelopmental disorders. So this is what we have to bridge the gap, and we have to catch the children at young and intervene early. So catch them at young, intervene early. That is what early intervention. Okay, right? Thank you very much for your time. Now, I would like to have all my panelists for the panel discussion. It's already 3, 4, 5, 10 to 5. Madam, thank you very much from Texas. You are not slept. I think it's in the morning, 6:30 or 7 o'clock.
So good. Thank you. You know, everybody's...
Dr. Pavan is there. Dr. Pavan, please come onto the online. Dr. Jason, sir. Dr. Jason C. Unni, sir. Dr. Pavan Kumar, please, we are going to start, commence the panel discussion. Thank you very much. Yes, now I'm requesting the audience to ask the doubts, clarify their doubts, because this is a very, very important webinar. Most of the children nowadays, for every 66 children, one child is diagnosed with somewhat autism spectrum disorder or any kind of neurodevelopmental disorder. So we have to know, we have to propagate this information to our friends, families, well-wishers. So please do clarify your doubts. Thank you very much.
And also obesity is high, acanthosis nigricans is high, which is related to the dietary indiscretion. So I see a lot of obese kids even in India with the blackening in the back, neck and on the fingers. So diet is very important.
Yeah, please, you can go ahead. Doubts?
Good evening, ma'am. This is Venkat Lakshmi.
Yeah.
I'm a mother of twin boys. Jagadish, shall I ask to me, ma'am?
Please, go ahead, Venkat Lakshmi Garu.
Yeah. Ma'am, I want to know about the probiotic supplement, what to be given. Because I am giving buttermilk to my kids. It's a dairy.
So you can buy probiotics with millions of commensal organisms, and 10 cups of curd will not be there in one sachet of the probiotics. And I know India has been manufacturing probiotics for a long time. There may be, some may be expensive, but you can go with the cheaper ones also. So these are supplemented in addition to the yogurt and buttermilk, because the amount of probiotics that you get from a half a cup, you know, they eat like a bird between 12 months to 4 years. You can't get much into them. So a supplemental probiotic is ideal.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
If any pediatricians are there in this group, please do ask as a practitioners. Parents are welcome to inquire, and therapists also welcome to inquire, because you need to disseminate the information to your patients or clients. You need to educate. You need to propagate about the diet, because the diet dictates the human behavior. When you equip with this knowledge, you can start at earliest, right from the day one, from the breastfeeding itself.
Even prenatally, doctor, and also the breastfeeding. What are we doing to push the breastfeeding in India, you know, which is even among the poorest of the poor. When I did medical missions, they did very well with the breastfeeding. Once they are weaned off, that's when the problems start. And so the myelination is good, the copra antibodies are good, the immunoprotectors are good, stem cells are good. I think all pediatricians have to really take a course on why breastfeeding and the positions and everything, or at least, you know, try to push for that prenatally with the prenatal counseling. That's my take on that.
And also, I would like to add one point here. The early intervention starts from the, from the age, I think 13 years or 12 years. When the girl child attains the puberty, we need to educate the mothers of the female children to check whether the female child is having proper iron or B complex or vitamin D or zinc, etc. So that she can give a healthy child, she can give birth to a healthy child without any kind of neurodevelopmental disability or disorder. So we can start educating the girls at the college level itself, or at least 9th class or 10th class age onwards, that is from 13 or 14 of years. This is what the early intervention plays a role. So that once the damage occurs, secondary prevention is over. Primary level of prevention only we have to consider here, by educating the community, by educating the mothers, educating the female children, preferably at the school level. That is from 9th or 10th class. Yes. Dr. Jiten Sivani, sir, I would like you to add about this.
Yeah, there's so many studies that show that, it's preconception, pregnancy, preconception nutrition that is so important. And iron, as I mentioned, iron and folate is something that is very important by the time this adolescent should be told where the sources for iron and folate. Ensure that education is done in school, and the need for, if they're going to have, nowadays children don't, these ladies, girls and boys don't want children. They're scared with so much of material that they're getting. They're so scared, they're stressed out, saying, what will happen to my child? Will my child grow normally? They become good at studies. If they have an autism, so much of information and neurodevelopmental problems is going around that it scares people. So the message that, if they are careful with their diet, they're careful with their lifestyle early, and they are nutritionally good, about 50, 45 kilos when they get pregnant, and their iron status and folate status is good, is high. And you have a lot of advice for during prenatal counseling for pregnant ladies. It's so important. Our systems are doing very well. Our breast milk exclusive breastfeeding rates in Kerala is around 70 to 80%. So it's good. So because now people have gone back to exclusive breastfeeding after 6 months, and that is doing a lot of good. And the message that weaning foods, good weaning foods is the way to go about ensuring that children get their iron and folate and all these vitamins that are required for good development, and then to avoid foods, junk foods, and avoid sugar early. This message should go around. Every pediatrician should know what is ideal weaning foods. So these are messages which this particular sessions have brought out, and I'm so happy that a lot of these things that Dr. Pawan and Meena talked about were so relevant to today's practices, that we should spend a lot of time on all this, educating parents, educating youngsters. When you're going school, you're doing school programs, you must go to schools, talk about these issues. This is so important. They should realize how they can change the lives of our citizens in our country.
Thank you very much, sir. Clearly
I
explained.
have a question.
Yes, please.
Sir, is the growth of a child related to the food, or is it genetical? The height of a person, the height of any child, is it related to the
any child
genetic?
that comes to you, you do a plot on a growth chart, and if the height is, the weight is appropriate for height, and you do a mid-parental height, and and you check whether the target height of the child is on the same line as what he is at that point, then you're sure that it is a familial short stature. If it is familial growth, family body structure, you don't have to be so worried. But if they're falling, if they're for growth, it's so important to growth monitor. Every immunization visit is a visit where you check out the communication, the milestones, the growth, and the feeding. And this continuous reinforcement of exclusive breastfeeding, where the mother, the grandmother, see, and a grandmother or mother asks the mother, "Do you have enough breast milk?" Immediately the breast milk will subside. I said everybody around the mother should be able to promote breastfeeding. So say you have enough breast milk, my little girl, you will have. There's no mother that doesn't have breast milk. That sort of continuous, every pediatrician should be doing this counseling for the mother, the grandmother, everybody in the family, because it's the mother-in-law who's causing a lot of problems. She stays away. The mother is with her mother, and the mother-in-law from another house rings up and says, "Do you have enough breast milk?" And breast milk subsides. So it's the tension is created. If you check weights regularly, if they do breast pumps and they check whether there's enough breast milk, that causes so much anxiety. I used to tell mothers, everyone should be able to tell mothers that if you have a normal child, if heart and kidneys are normal, don't think about anything. No anxiety. Your only job is to give breast milk. Breast milk is the greatest gift you can give your child. And the question was, whether it is genetics. Genetics definitely plays a role in your stature, but food also.
This is older groups, not under 3. But it's nice to catch them. But when we catch them at 2 years and they don't get therapy until 4 years, we have lost them. So you have to individualize it. You have to gradually desensitize it. It's like various textures, various vegetables, the furry vegetables, the soft vegetables. Some people don't like gooey stuff. We need to work with them to desensitize. That's my take on that, because it's not written in stone. Brain is malleable, plastic, resilient. I would never give up even on a 6-year-old child. even with a chromosomal anomaly. Anybody else, experts who are board certified in that, can talk about it.
Thank you.
So the first 3 years, I think, know that we are cell matter, and the toxic stress, community experiences that are adverse, electronics, adverse childhood experiences, even parents quarreling with the loud voices, or mother-in-law raising voice or father-in-law raising voice, mutually, it could be husband or wife. The children withdraw their senses. And if mother is depressed, are we doing postpartum depression scales on every postpartum visit, for the 2-week visit? Very important, because if the mother is just watching the child, is hyped up or over loving, that also causes roots for autism. When they don't let, there is no demand and gratification, and they don't let the child cry. So everyone loves their child, but there is a dynamic transition growth that is happening every single minute that we need to be watchful and use that alert stage, when they're just sitting around, quiet alert stage. That's very important phase to give quality.
Genetics and epigenetics and nutrigenetics. 3 will be having effects. Maybe 20% genetics, 60% epigenetics, the environment in which the child is growing, the environment in which the maternal mother is, there, and the nutrigenetics, what the parents are feeding the child from the day one or during the, pregnancy period, as Dr. Pawan said, prenatal nutrition, perinatal and postnatal, all the factors, all these factors definitely, certainly will show impact on the child's brain or developing fetus during the intrauterine life itself. Yes, any doubts, please?
Sir, good evening, sir.
Yes, Anita.
Sir, how early we can identify the child is having the problem autism or ADHD as a common mother? How early she can find out the difference?
Yes. Dr. Jason, sir, please. How early we can identify the child with attention deficit hyperactive disorder?
In India, our ASD detection is about 2 years average, 2.5 years. That's a little late. Actually, we as pediatricians should be able to detect deviances from normal. So right from the time the baby starts cooing or social smile or reaction to the parents when the child is angry or happy, emotional, communication with the parents, those deviances have picked up by pediatricians early. It is so important that you do an MChat at 18 months and 22 months. That's when they come for the immunization. It's so important. But before that, you must be able to pick up deviances from normal. And that's what, since communication starts from right when the baby is born. The baby, when it's born, doesn't know the mother. He doesn't know who the mother is. And how does he realize who the mother is? Because whenever the baby cries, the person who comes and feeds him or takes him up, he feeds as a mother. He's learning about communication because with how the mother talks to her mother and how the mother talks to the mother-in-law or to the husband is totally different. So they're learning so many things as they're growing. It's all from observation that the child is learning. And if the child is not able to understand these emotions and the way that communication is happening, there is a problem. So that has to be picked up. And that, if a child doesn't look at you properly by about 2-3 months, you must think that there is something wrong. So it is so important that you pick up the deviances from normal, and in that case, you can pick them up early. Though you cannot make a diagnosis for sure, but by 18 months, you should do an MChat and confirm the diagnosis, and then if there is a suspicion, then they're going to go on to diagnose it properly by CARS and other tests.
Thank you very much, sir.
We must look for that, and all pediatrics should be aware.
ASQSE from birth, do you all use those? Ages and stages questionnaire.
Yes.
I'm using Dr. Nandini's software. Nandini Munkurshi is that software, which and every child that comes to the OPD is assessed with that software. So if there is a doubt, then he's sent to the neurodevelopment center.
And also, most of the therapists as well as the parents do get confused with these terms like, first one is screening. What are the screening tools for any kind of neurodevelopmental disorder? And what are the assessment tools? And what are the, again, a difference. There are provisional diagnosis, and differential diagnosis. So it is very important to know or to differentiate between the screening tool as well as the assessment tool. Screening tool can be used by any parent, any common man. Only thing is they should get it from the professionals as a education, like a public health education program. Once they know about the red flags, they can refer for further assessment to a professional or certified professional for assessment or for diagnosis. After the provisional diagnosis can be done. After the diagnosis, it is the duty of the professional or clinician to go for differential diagnosis. Differential diagnosis is very important for any professional because evidence-based practice is here only. Once you able to differentiate, once you able to really exactly locate the problem of the child, the early intervention can be done in a very easy way. Or therapeutic intervention can be done. That includes parent counseling as well as a therapeutic intervention program, whatever it is. Yes.
For ADHD, especially, every pediatrician know what behavioral therapy is about. Like Meena was talking about timeout and token economy. It's so important that behavioral intervention should start as soon as you make a diagnosis. Only then it is the compliance to that therapy will continue as by 6-7 years when you start medication if required. The behavior therapy should be right on target. It should be properly it's be happening in that home right from the time the child is. So you have so many things a pediatrician has to tell the mother with parents with ADHD who come to you. They're so worried that this child can't go around with this child, can't take him out anywhere because he's all over the place and he's destroying stuff. So the behavioral therapy the token economy and all things that they should be, see, a 1-year-old child should be able to sit at least for 1 minute, a 2-year-old for at least 2 minutes, 3-year-old at least that 3 minutes, 4 minutes. So that sort of understanding of what you can do as behavior therapy. You must read up about token economy, about how to make your timeout an interesting time for the child. That is so important that every pediatrician. That's a lot of advice that you can give parents with these problems.
Yes. Depending rather than on medication or pharmacotherapy for the child with moderate ADHD or borderline or mild ADHD, I sincerely suggest the parents to start with behavior modification therapy. As Dr. Jason sir explained very clearly, please rely on the behavior modification techniques with reinforcement schedules. Various techniques are there. Please learn from the psychologist. They will be explaining you like how to intervene the child's behavior during the crisis and the home environment. Definitely it will be helpful. Please right away don't ask the doctor to prescribe a medication because every medication will be having some kind of adverse effect, like insomnia, sleeping sickness, or hypersomnia or hyposomnia, or a kind of loss of appetite. So many are there. It will be affecting even the sleep also. Sleep means biological rhythm or circadian rhythm of the child also. So rely on behavior therapy or techniques. Yes, sir.
And positive parenting aspects of, Dr. Jason, the concept now is more to cognitive behavior modification therapy with more positive time in, rather than, the old way of positive timeout is also highly has been beneficial. I don't know if you concur with that or anything. It would be wonderful if general pediatricians get a workshop on all these positive parenting guidelines and cognitive behavior modification therapy. That will be helpful. And my take in neuroplasticity is that you can prevent a lot of things if the parent is taught what to look for. And that's why I asked about ages and stages questionnaire. So if there is a deviation, the pediatrician observes and immediately gets the required help. And just like viruses cause an illness, I think behavior has a pathogenesis, and there is more emphasis on environment, ACE, and toxic stress, and which seems to be very rampant because of the alcohol consumption in India. I was there for 8.5 months, I've seen it. and what it does to the families. I've seen it, and also electronics are overused. I've seen it. So domestic violence is part and parcel of all these things.
Rampant, yeah.
I look for pathogenesis. I look for pathogenesis in autism. I look for pathogenesis in every behavior disorder and in depression. If we can make a child self-reliant before the fifth birthday with the resilience and self-confidence and bringing out the strengths, that's why I call my programs Educare, because you express the inherent strengths. Then I think they know how to be impervious to the negativity in the society from and making healthy choices, living life choices. That's why I want to leave the pediatricians with a message on that.
Yes, Jawaharlal Garu. Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, nothing, sir. I just want to say thanks to all these, Dr. Jason sir, Meena Chintapalli madam, and you, sir, especially for conducting this, and Dr. Pawan Kumar. Sir, whatever the knowledge is flown like a Ganga here, we are learning so much. In fact, we are very much fascinated about knowing subjects, and the way you are giving us with examples has really enlightened us. It is helping us much more to help the society when the callers comes to us as a counseling psychologist. Thank you, sir. My regards to everybody. Please.
Thank you, Jawaharlal Nehru Garu. Thank you very much. Any doubts from the audience, professionals, parents? Because time is already, it's 5:18.
Good evening, sir. My name is Chiranjeevi. I have one question.
Yeah, please.
So, if you look at ADHD and bipolar disorder,
Right.
there are some symptoms overlapping. For example, restlessness, irritability, hyperactivity, impulsivity, right? So, so if you look at these symptoms, can we say it is ADHD directly, or do we need to further diagnose so that to make clear that it could be a bipolar disorder?
Yes, Dr. Jason sir.
No, I think in small children, you must go by the DCM-5 and for diagnosis of ADHD. Because unless you have a definitive diagnosis of ADHD, you don't label children as ADHD. And the bipolar disorders, it's not so common at this age, this small, younger age group.
Yes.
But older children who suddenly develop ADHD, you must consider. When they're okay till then and suddenly have behavior problems, you must consider a psychotic disorder. But otherwise, I don't think that is a confusion in this young age.
Yes. Yes. Any doubts from others?
Sir, do you all use the Vanderbilt scales, all the pediatricians?
Yes.
Vanderbilt scale is used.
Yes. Yes.
And so they kind of map, and the mapping is on with the interrelationships. That gives us the cause for some of these behavioral symptoms. When we score the symptoms, is the symptom, but there is an underlying cause that precipitated them, and we can address that. And once the 11% of the families in the in abuse systems, in child protective service custody, when the parents improved, automatically the children's ADHD, depression, and behaviors improved. And so that mapping is important. So every pediatrician has to be robust in those skills.
Yes. Rightly said, madam. Rightly said. First of all, the parents needs counseling. First of all, the parents needs intervention. Then you go to child. Straight away, don't go to the child. First, you intervene the parents and environment. That is epigenetics.
Grandparents also.
Grandparents, yeah. Yes, you targeted grandparents. Fine.
No, grandparents were is a way. See,
exactly.
We didn't have so much of speech problems earlier because there was joint families and there was somebody always to talk to the children, tell them stories. That is missing now.
Exactly.
So grandparents are have a great role in ensuring better child development, because the parents are now both are working and they're leaving the child with the eye. That is the problem.
Yes, yes. So grandparents need to be educated. So target the grandparents also. Dr. Jason sir said, please counsel the grandparents during your OP settings. Call them. Without their attendance, don't attend the child first. You first attend the grandparents, then later parents, then finally the child. definitely you can expect the improvement. I'm telling. It's a constructive. You can eat the constructive results.
It's intergenerational education.
Exactly, because there's a lot of gap is happening between that generation to this progeny. So we need to gap this gap. We need to fill this gap as a constructive.
You know, when we are doing parenting in schools,
yes,
every generation is different. We have learned parenting from what our parents did to us. So that doesn't work with the new generation. So every time it's a dynamic process which we have to continue to learn. Parents need to continue to learn. Yeah.
So, Dr. Pavan, would you like to add any comment, please?
Yeah, I think they're excellently telling that, positive parenting workshop, I think we need to seriously think about.
Definitely.
Because there is a saying which says, raise yourself before you raise your children. So unless the parents, because you can't get, if you squeeze a orange, you will get orange juice only. If you squeeze a mango, you will get mango juice only. So mother has to become that, not just genetics, as you rightly said, epigenetics, the environment which they provide, the mother-child interactions which are most important. So nutrition is one part, but the neurostimulation in a nurturing environment, that decides, that is the software. Whatever the nutrition we spoke today, what child or what we eat, what they eat, that is mainly for the hardware. But when coming to the software part, I think we need to, the mother-child interaction in a loving, caring and responsive way, that matters a lot.
Yes.
So as madam is rightly telling, positive parenting workshop are the need of the hour. I think if Apollo takes a lead and conduct a positive parenting workshop,
but the present parents are concentrating on interacting with electronic gadgets rather than the human interaction, which is missing really, because both parents are working. The child is missing actually the human touch, human care. That has to be enhanced. That has to be strengthened. The gap is there only, which is occurring.
And that's why one of the reasons why children don't see the mother's face with the autism, they see the electronics, they see the iPad.
Because they're not eating, that's what they're showing YouTube. Earlier, they used to show the, moon, Chandamama, moon. And they used to feed the baby. Nowadays, they are showing the YouTube or some kind of, cartoons.
And that causes the bizarre neural networks,
that is affecting the neural networks, yes.
Actually, a little hyperactive mother is a good thing.
Your elite group is there. All of you are there. Don't mean to cut anybody. I'm anxious to ask you, when you go to the schools, what is it would be ideal if we talk from 5th grade to the 12th grade, we explain at their level what is good brain, what is bad brain, how the good brain can be made work, what is the bad brain does, and the diet and exercises, the major focus that can prevent chaos that is happening, because in the next 10 years we can accomplish this if we attend it today and bring them to the schools to educate them psychoeducation and neuroeducation. So why they shouldn't do it in their own, at their own level? I wish that's the movement that IAP can take, and I'll be very happy. Although
that is why focused on the educating the female children at the 9th class itself at puberty stage, so that she can prevent.
Men are equally responsible.
fully responded. Even Dr. Jason only also supported.
Dr. Meena, as we were discussing previously, that mother is the first teacher and home is the first school.
Exactly.
So if we campaign that again, and because the first 1,000 days happens in the home only, no going to school, only the home this can be done, first 1,000 days. So IAP TCB, our Hyderabad branch, has initiated a program called Genius India Movement. Now we have almost enrolled more than 900 parents into this project, where we are studying the impact of nutrition and neurostimulation in a structured way on the developmental quotient of all the parameters. So we are going to study the impact on 6 months, 12 months, 18 months and 24 months about only 2 interventions, nothing much, nutrition and neurostimulation in a nurturing environment. So that education we are started rolling on as a part of this Genius India movement.
Look at my curriculum. It has unflinching success. But we have to involve the father when IQ points will go up by 10 on the IQ if father is involved. Because if the father is holding a beer can and watching TV, as soon as they come home and do not interact and create the family time, at least at the meal time, we have the ACE and toxic stress.
If I'm not interrupting, they are called as photo fathers. They're only seen in the photos, not in the daytime to the homes.
True.
We need to overcome. Thank you so much for
Thank
this
you very much. Thank you, one and all. Especially, Sir Dr. Jason, sir. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Please, go ahead.
No, I didn't say anything. I just saying bye.
Okay. No. Just a minute. I would like to extend my thankfulness and gratefulness to eminent speakers, Dr. Jason Unni sir, Dr. Meena Chintapalli from Texas, and Dr. Pavan Kumar, Dr. S. Sri Krishna, and also the eminent participants. Without you, the webinar will not be successful. I think the group consisting of the parents, professionals, therapists, pediatricians, clinicians, it is a multidisciplinary team I can see here after the registration. Thank you, one and all.
Shubham kurutvam kalyanam arogyam dhanasampadah. Shubham kurutvam